Sort of Coming Chapter 990. In the corridor on the first floor of the bamboo building, Qin Pingon held a booklet in his hand, Yuan Shu and Xiaomi sat on the left and right, and they all tilted their heads to read the chronology on the third page. The white-haired boy said triumphantly, "I am determined to omit the narration and reflect the future. Ancestor of the hidden official, if you hadn't reminded me that the chronology should be written in a simple way, the simpler the better, otherwise I will let you know what a text is. Byung-Hwan in quality." Qin Pingon smiled, rolled up the booklet and knocked on the head of the white-haired boy. Yuan Shu continued to lower his head to sew cloth shoes, and Xiaomi immediately turned his head away. While beating the white-haired boy, Qin Pingon laughed angrily. "Please explain to me, the editor, what do the three annotations mean?" It turned out that in the yearbook, it was written in the 6th year of Junping, on the 27th day of the first month Fengliuan Yuningjing Jianxiu Lu Baqiao, together with the 18-year-old Jianxiu Nangong Xingyan of the sea-viewing realm, visited Luopao Mountain, and the mountain owner Qin Pingon. It is negotiated to participate in the opening ceremony of Xing Yuheng's Jindanjian Xiu in Fenglei Garden. The owner of the mountain will go down the mountain this summer. On the 28th of the first lunar month, Lu Baqiao and Nangong Xingyan returned to their hometowns by Nujiadu. Note 1 lied about his age. Nangong Xingyan's real age is 21 years old. Note 2 Lu Baqiao walked into the mountain and borrowed the Guan Yi sword talisman issued by Longquan Jianzong to Nangong Xingyan. Note 3 participated in Fenglei Garden for the congratulations of the opening ceremony. Whether the mountain owner will pay for it himself, or will it be selected from the treasury of Luopa Mountain Springs, it is not yet determined. The white-haired boy said aggrieved, "Isn't the more detailed the better?" Qin Pingon handed the booklet back to the white-haired boy, hesitated for a moment and said, "Get another supplementary book and all the annotations will be compiled into the supplementary book of chronology. In the future only 3 or 5 people from Luopao Mountain will be able to read the supplementary book." The white-haired boy asked tentatively, "There are only 3 or 5 people, only the mountain master Zhang Lu, the chief, the spring mansion master and the old cook? What about Yuan Shu and the right protector? Can't Mr. Mo also watch?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Why, are you starting to sow discord?" The white-haired boy raised his 2 fingers and said righteously, "The sun and the moon can be learned, the conscience of heaven and earth." Qin Pingon turned his head to look and a group of 3 people came to the bamboo building, all with happy expressions, and there was also the master of the fox country who came from the lotus root blessed land. She is in charge of longevity and treats the lotus root blessed land that has been ranked among the top rank. She is like meticulously taking care of her own vegetable garden. Every time she opens the door and enters, she will be in those landscape-shaped places where aura gathers, as well as the prosperous cities. Take out 1 to 5 gold fine copper coins, first refining, and then condensing into mysterious places similar to post stations. These gold and copper coins are of course her private money. Qin Pingon roughly guessed the situation on the blessed land side, but just laughed without saying a word. Pei Xiang gave 1,000 blessings and said with a smile, "Happy event." Zhou Xian smiled and said, "As soon as the sun returns home, good things will come to the door. It really is a New Year's atmosphere." Qin Pingon gestured for the 3 of them to sit down and chat and asked with a smile, "What's going on?" Pei Xiang sat on the steps, turned sideways and explained to the mountain master, "Double happiness is coming. At the same time there are 2 golds in the blessed land. Yuzhini left the blessed land after proving the Tao and left the land for the Hushan faction of Songlai Kingdom. I have had a lot of luck, it can be regarded as an ancestor, but it turned out that someone made a mistake and by coincidence he succeeded in forming a golden pill." Qin Pingon nodded and asked, "The first Jindan cultivator is not Wei Liang, the old emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom? As for the warrior of the 7 realms, is it Qing Zongyuan? The great general Tang Tie, or the queen mother of Nanyuan Kingdom Zhou Xian?" Zhu Lian shook his head and said, "The Hushan school chi trainer is named Gao Jun, who is high and low and the prince of gentlemen. The pure martial artist is named Zhou Xian, the belle of love and the beauty of Qianli." Changming said with a smile, "The golden core cultivator and the golden body realm warrior appear in the blessed land. The matter itself is nothing. The most important thing is that the operation of the blessed land is on the right track. Spring plants and autumn harvests, the cycle of nature. Natural growth, full of vitality. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth circulates in all directions. If it is said that auspiciousness and spirits and monsters appear together in various places, it is only a sign. And now even if there is really the so-called land of fish and rice, where you can enjoy the coolness in the ancient books of the fairy family. Eugenie was once the first transcendental existence in the blessed land who switched from martial arts to cultivating immortal methods. Eugenie, who was successful in his cultivation, returned to his roots, returned to his old age, and Xianxia, who was a close friend of his hometown, finally appeared in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom with the face of a child and the posture of an immortal with a sword. Eugenie left 2 books for the Zhou Xian school before the Immortal slew and soaring. One was a collection of martial arts experience from the best of hundreds of schools, and the other was a celestial book that helped him to prove the Tao and ascend. In this way, it means that the Zhou Xian school has become more and more secure in the top spot on the mountain, because it turns out that the inheritance of Taoism left by the first-generation patriarch Eugenie is not the kind of high-level sermons that can only be put on the shelf for incense. But really being able to apply what they have learned is equivalent to setting up a ladder to the sky for the descendants of the Zhou Xian sect. Now it depends on whether the second-generation patriarch of the Zhou Xian sect, who is a golden elixir, can maintain this great situation. Chong Qiu and Chao Qingqing were also born in the blessed land, and now they are both accomplished practitioners of Taoism, but there is a gap between them and the blessed land, because they both embarked on the path of Taoism in the vast world, so they are not recognized by a brand new world. The orthodoxy is like not being listed in the genealogy by the Zhu Shirtang, so the first person who is righteous is the Gaojun of the Zhou Xian school. This person will practice more smoothly in the future without any accident, just like the great Tao of heaven and earth. The beloved is like the eldest son who is expected to inherit the orthodoxy. Qin Pingon said, Wei Liang or Dragon Gate? Pei Xiang nodded and said, Wei Liang has been the bottleneck of the Dragon Gate realm in recent years. He has been out of the gate twice, but he has never been able to break the bottleneck. Qin Pingon said, You guys find an opportunity to chat with him. Wei Liang's gains and losses are very important. Don't accidentally go into the devil. Maybe the first person to notice the vision of the blessed earth and heaven and earth is not you but Wei Liang. Wei Liang, the supreme emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, failed to become the first alchemy cultivator, but Qin Pingon was not too surprised. Wei Liang was still very old and he was too late to cultivate. The official mountaineering practice began at the age of Jiazi. Although there are secrets, it is a stone letter given by Luopao Mountain according to the agreement. There are 3 volumes of Taoism in it, and Nanyuan Kingdom chose a place with strong dragon spirit for the emperor who took the initiative to concede. In the land, a large construction project was built, and a dojo was secretly built, and Wei Liang's own cultivating qualifications were indeed very good, and the speed of breaking through the realm was not unpleasant. Although it was a shortcut, it could also be included in the category of sidetracking on the mountain, not a mind trick. Unrighteous demons and outlaws, Wei Liang's location and people have all, but in the end he was sent by Hushan Gaojun to take the lead, just like Wei Liang's organization was exhausted, and only one time of the sky was missing. This is actually the orderly operation of Lotus Root Blessed Road. There has been an invisible rejection of interference from foreign forces. However, according to the earliest agreement between Luopa Mountain and Nanyuan Kingdom, Luopa Mountain only guarantees that Wei Liang will be able to enter the middle 5 realms. I am afraid that people will not be satisfied. I always feel hungry and never get enough to eat. Zhu Lian said, being overwhelmed by the illusory Tao, Wei Liang was not the first to form a golden elixir, which is actually a good thing for Luopa Mountain. The Tao of Lotus Root Blessed Land has become more and more condensed, and maybe there will be opportunities to appear in the future. A legendary little god. This kind of master of the blessed land of the cave, dubbed Little God, is similar to the flower master of the blessed land of hundreds of flowers, and the lady of Xianxia in the bamboo sea cave. They all came into being and are extremely rare. Qin Pingon said indifferently, the catastrophe in the Cloud Cave Blessed Land was a lesson from the past. This kind of thing is unpredictable. Jiang Shangzhen has always guessed that the accident in the Yunku Blessed Land was only the superficial reason for the manipulation of the old guys in the Yugui Patriarch's Hall. It's just that Jiang Shangzhen has been searching for so many years, but he has never been able to find that existence. This led to a very mysterious confrontation. The Jiang family and this deeply hidden existence can each be regarded as the masters of half the Cloud Cave Blessed Land. Zhou Xian smiled and said, if there is such a Daoist friend appearing, as long as the young master comes out in person, chats with the other party a few words, sits down and talks about the Taoism, and the negotiation is done. What's more, Luopao Mountain's cultivation and maintenance of the lotus root blessed land cannot be said to be inhumane and just. Qin Pingon smiled bitterly. It's easy to say. At that time he was about to leave the blessed land of lotus flowers that had not yet been divided into 4 by Lao Guanzhu. Qin Pingon met the Emperor Wei Liang, who took the initiative to hold a banquet in the Beijing restaurant. At that time His Majesty the Emperor was still in his prime. In order to rule the world was in turmoil, and Chong Qiu resigned as the national teacher. Wei Liang chose the latter between the unification of the world and the immortality of the Tao on his own. He took the initiative to abdicate to the Prince Wei Yan, and the second Prince Wei Yun was imprisoned. Later Wei Xian once returned to the Blessed Land. As the founding emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, he was the first human monarch in history to send alchemists to visit immortals. According to Pei Qian, the meeting scene at that time was very funny. Presumably from that moment on, Wei Liang had the heart of cultivating Taoism, but Wei Liang reached a verbal agreement with Luopao Mountain through the national teacher Chongqiu. But he hopes to see with his own eyes that Nanyuan Kingdom dominates the world. In fact, the implication is that Wei Liang is testing Luopao Mountain. If he succeeds in his cultivation, since he can call the wind and rain, he will help Nanyuan Kingdom to annex Songlai Kingdom in the form of an immortal. Tripartite forces. Luopaotian didn't say it could or couldn't at the beginning just because Wei Liang still didn't know very well. When there are more and more Qi practitioners in the world, no one will dare to say that one family is the only one, and it will naturally form a mutual relationship. The pattern of constraints, one world, such as the stalking of the martial arts masters by the Qi practitioners from various countries, the exchange of Taoism between the Qi practitioners, the competition for the single plank bridge between those with similar Taoism, and every time the magic weapon on the mountain appears in the world, every Taoist practice is conducted. The competition for embryos is often accompanied by the fall of the older Qi practitioners in the intrigue. In addition, the various countermeasures against many Qi practitioners will appear one by one. I believe that Wei Liang now has realized this. With the prosperity of the Hushan school in Songlai Kingdom, there are more and more Qi practitioners. It is obvious that they have more advantages and staying power than Nanyuan Kingdom in the future. For decades, it was hard to say who merged with whom, so it was necessary for the Nanyuan Kingdom to expend more energy to support Yueshenzhen and Zhanghe Jingshan, and to compete with the cultivators of the Hushan faction. Pei Xiang said, Shanju, on the way here Zhu Lian and I discussed with Zhanglu Changming. This Gao Jun and Zhong Qian always have to see each other and make the best of their friendship. Qin Pingon nodded and asked again, how did this golden body realm martial artist break through the realm? Pei Xiang said with a smile. It's a young warrior with no name of origin from the northern Jin Kingdom. He has good aptitude and good luck. He made a big fuss in the capital of the northern Jin Kingdom. The 2 warriors of the 6 realms led the pursuit, but one was killed thanks to the temporary breakthrough, and they got an unexpected military luck on the way to escape. Having said that, Paixiang's eyes were charming, and he glanced at the smiling old man beside him. In the hands of the master of Taoism, there are 10 people in the world who are blessed with lotus flowers, and they can beat the drums in every battle. Only, the noble son Zhu Lian and the exiled immortal Zhu Lang almost made an unprecedented event. The feat of killing 9 people with 1 person in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom. What's even more strange is that Zhu Lianming can beat the drum alone to ascend immortal, just like he was tired of living and deliberately gave a head to Ding for nothing. The young Ding Ying who got the silver lotus Dao crown began to climb to the top of martial arts. Zhu Lian smiled and said, I don't know when the first sword cultivator worthy of the name will appear in lotus root blessed land. Qin Pingon smiled and said, you can't ask for this kind of thing, you can only wait honestly. After a blessed land ranks among the top-ranked blessed land, the bottleneck of the way of heaven tends to be stable, and it cannot be broken with human and financial resources. There is a chance to appear monks in the upper 5 realms from the inside out, to break the bottleneck and soar to the vast world. The inferior blessed land is limited by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and it is an extremely difficult threshold to cross for local Qi practitioners to enter the cave state. In the middle-level blessed land, the cultivator is expected to have a golden elixir and become a terrestrial real person who lives on the land. There is hope that the yin will travel far away from the body, but the outer body of the yang is difficult to shape. In the first-class blessed land, qi practitioners have the hope of forming a golden elixir, holding the vitality of heaven and earth to raise the yuan yin, and even go a step further. Become a jade realm. Qin Pingan smiled and got up and said, "Then I'll go see that Earth Immortal Gaojun Wei Liang and Zhou Xian. You guys can chat." After the chat is over, Ji Sifeng will convene another meeting in the Patriarch's Hall. Julian nodded. The corners of Pikexiang's mouth twitched up, and the mountain master was still very unsurprising. On Mi Xiefeng's side, Cui Dongshan tentatively gave a suggestion. Let our Daoist Xianwei go to the Lotus Root Blessed Land. As long as his feet touch the ground, he doesn't need to say anything. It may be more effective than throwing 100 Taoist books to the Blessed Land. This kind of mysterious thing, I am afraid that it will not be possible to change anyone. Really only the Taoist priest can do it. It's just that after Qin Pingan hesitated, he still didn't agree to this. Of course, it's not that I don't want Lotus Flower Blessed Land to grow Dao Qi, but am worried that this move will invisibly reduce Xianwei's own Qi. It would be a half-truth to say that Xianwei was thrown into the Blessed Land. Then Cui Dongshan even proposed a whimsical idea. All sentient beings in the Lotus Flower Blessed Land have the opportunity to practice martial arts. Courts of various countries, sects of rivers and lakes, immortal mansions on the mountains and open doors, not only cannot help but spread martial arts secrets and Taoist secrets, but also publish them. Related books. Weeds are overgrown and full of life. At that time, Qin Pingan only asked one question. In the 10,000-year history of the world, has there been such a precedent for the large and small sects with blessed land? Cui Dongshan replied, I have, but they have not been successful. The sequelae are huge and there are many hidden dangers. Almost all of them have turned into a mess. As a result, their respective blessed places have gradually recovered their vitality after hundreds of years of self-cultivation and rejuvenation, so I usually choose one. The inferior blessed land, the Aizhou Lu family, the Fu Lu Yushuan, and the Luxiazitianyu Dongtianshu Dongtian have all made similar attempts, but they were not careful enough. This is called the foundation is not strong, the ground is shaking, so the mistake is that they think too little, do too much and mess around. The most fundamental reason for their failure is that their underlying thinking is not perfect, accurate and stable. The settings of the fundamental rules are extremely inappropriate. Relying on a bunch of half-assist artists to work behind closed doors over there, the so-called derivation of the Tao and the evolution of the context are just random. Then where did you get the confidence to do this? Of course, it's because of the presence of Mr. and the proud student of me. Mr. controls a vital general direction, and the students are responsible for formulating more than a dozen fundamental contexts and adjusting tens of thousands of details, which work seamlessly together. In the north of Tongye continent, the ancestral mountain of Xianxia is named Longmian, and the top of the mountain where the ancestral hall is located, also known as the Peak of the Heart, is a very poetic name. There will be a meeting of the Patriarch Hall today. The new owner of the mountain is a fairy named Dragon Beard, Situ Mengjing, a big dragon from the Middle-earth divine continent. He sat on the seat in the center of the Patriarch's Hall, facing the gate with his back facing the pictures on the wall. It's a bit funny because this Middle-earth immortal on the genealogy of De Longqiu is actually higher than the patriarchs of the Little Longqiu above the statues here in terms of age, seniority and realm. Therefore, the new mountain master respecting incense is exempted, and the one above the hanging statue really can't bear the respect of Xianjun Longbeard. This is the first time that the abbot of Situ Mingjing convened a discussion in the Zushi Hall. Before going back and forth, he just declared that Xianxia Fengshan was a jiazi, and the resolution of the Zushi Hall was not passed. Naturally, there would be no objection, and Xianxia Cultivator did not have the courage to criticize half a sentence, and he would not dare in private. After all, Immortal Monarch Longbeard was the most promising old patriarch to take over the position of sect master Delongqiu, but Situ Mengjing was just unwilling to do so. Situ Mengjing was the first to arrive. Sitting on a chair, he closed his eyes and rested his hands together. An immortal who is not angry with himself. When Huang Ting asked Jian Xianlongqiu, he just handed out 3 swords and completely destroyed the heart of the entire mortal mansion. One sword directly slashed the mountain protection formation. The second sword seriously injured Lin Huizhi, the mountain owner at that time, and the third sword directly split the Zhu Shirtang in half. This is the sword fairy style. Bystanders will feel dazzled and emotional, and pity the authorities who are forced to lead the sword, but they will only have no masters and their hearts will be split. From the name of the sect, Xianxia is very hydrophilic. The hills are surrounded by water towns and zealots. The waterways are developed and crisscrossed. There is a boiling stone platform in the mountain, and there is a rolling river outside the mountain. The two guards enshrined respectively an extremely rare moon-picking ape, and an old turtle that is said to have lived for thousands of years. As for the two old fish in the rolling mountain river, they were both Jindan realm cultivation bases. After the war ended, Tong Yezhou, a mountain top, originally had two nascent soul realm immortals, and was already a first-class mountain sect. In the north of Tongye continent except for Yuguazong whose thin dead camel is bigger than a horse, in addition Jindingwen Qinghu Palace in Qingjing Mountain, and Bailong Cave are actually inferior to Xiaolongqiu. As a result, the mountain master Lin Huizhi and his junior brother Quan Qingqiu were both detained by Situ Mengjing and returned to Delongqiu. What happened? Xiaolongqiu has not received any news so far, and he dare not ask any questions. Even putting aside the respected immortal Longbeard, even though Xiaolongqiu has lost two nascent soul ancestors now, he is still not too shabby. Today there are more than 20 cultivators who came to Sini Jinzu Master Hall to discuss matters. Except for one Jindan Earth Immortal who was a close disciple of the previous mountain master Lin Huizhi, the rest were cultivators from Longmen and Guanhai. In addition to the two guardian mountains and the two great sages of the river and the king of Huangshui, who are also in the golden elixir realm, Xiaolongqiu can still have as many as 5 golden elixir earth immortals. As for the 6 important guest ministers who were originally qualified to participate in the discussion, other family tree cultivators were enshrined in their names, but Xiaolongqiu did not call a single one this time. For example, the chief guest secretary, the nascent soul immortal with the Dao name, Daffodil, and Zhang Luzhu did not return to the mountain to participate in such an important discussion. Wufu Qingmi, the abbot of Yiyuan Affairs, was able to attend this meeting as a non-voting delegate, which was invited by Situ Mengjing himself. After Situ Mengjing and others were all seated, he opened his eyes and said indifferently, "Hong Yan, go and call Linghu Banana Fish." The direct disciple of Quan Qingqiu Hong Yan, who was the abbot of Xiaolongqiu recently, was a female cultivator of Jindan. She immediately got up and said goodbye and hurried to find Linghu Jiaoyu. When the girl was brought to the ancestor hall, she was arranged by Hong Yan to sit by the door. Linghu Banana Fish, the road name Fushu. A cultivator with a genealogy and a Taoist name means that he must be a cultivator in the 5th realm. She hangs a magic weapon Biluo on her waist, which is classified according to the mountain. It belongs to the magic weapon of the genus called the mountain. In the face of some mountain gods and land with low rank, she can train the mountain with this object, but it is only the rank of Biluo. After all, it can't be compared with the Tushan duo who can move mountains and move mountains. The girl was also the only Xiaolongqiu cultivator who was pleasing to the eye when Huang Ting was cultivating here. In Jade Gazong's Jiang's Cloud Cave Blessed Land, Linghu Banana Fish was selected on the Washanshan Rouge list last time, and she was the youngest female cultivator. Originally, when the ancestors were discussing matters, she didn't have anything to do, so the girl just wandered around alone. Not far from the point of mind where the Zushi Hall is located, there is a forbidden immortal cave. On the stone wall, the official script and seal engraving, "There is no heaven." Lin Huizhi, the last mountain lord, Master Qingxuang, once retreated here to recuperate after taking the sword of Huang Ting. Passing through the cave, Linghu Banana Fish went to Panasonic's chess game place. Seeing that there was no one around, he first took a closer look at the ancient pine tree, then squatted down and looked at the bottom of the stone table. It seems that the young hidden official last time scared the little girl so much that she had sequelae. She always felt that the other party's talisman and flying sword were everywhere. The grandfather of Delongqiu, the current master of the mountain, once joined hands with Han Jiangshu, the immortal of Wanyaozong, to play a bad game here. Cultivator, no outsider can break the game. The stone table chessboard together with the chess pieces formed a mysterious formation that could stabilize the transportation of mountains and waters. It's just that the last time a young hidden official came here as a guest, he played 2 moves of chess here, and it is said that there is also the vision of heaven and earth that attracts the stars, which completely overwhelmed the old chess game and really became a foregone conclusion. Then Linghu Banana Fish was soon called by the Jindan Patriarch to participate in the discussion. The girl sat down in a daze, her mind blank. Situ Mengjing said straight to the point. Both Lin Huizhi and Quan Qingqiu have been removed from the Dalongqiu genealogy. When the immortal monarch's words were settled, the two portraits on the walls slammed to the ground. The monks looked at each other. There are two young female cultivators who are sisters. Except for the slight differences in eyebrows, eyes and expressions, the rest of the facial features and body are completely carved out of the same mold. The sisters are all direct disciples of Lin Huizhi. Although they went up the mountain late, they are of high seniority and talent. When they heard this, they all turned pale. Situ Mengjing continued, "It's just an expedient measure for me to take over as the owner of Xianxia Mountain. After closing the mountain for a period of a year, I will be the owner of Xianxia Mountain for 60 years. Within a period of 10 years, when discussing matters in the Patriarch's Hall in the future, the seats will be determined according to the current number of people. Generally speaking, it will only decrease and not increase unless I personally invite someone to take a seat. Except for Zhang Lizu's chief guest secretary, who will continue to remain, the rest of the guest officials who did not come to discuss matters today and make offerings in name will all stop paying their salaries, and then write a letter to each other to draw a clear line, so that they will not use Xianxia in the future. Close the wild garden, kill what should be killed and let it go. If you have hatred for Xianxia but don't deserve to die, let it go. Make it clear with Tianmu Academy in advance that the academy is willing to accept the demon clan. Just send it over. No, if you are willing, let them leave the Xianxia realm, fend for themselves, stare at them secretly, go down the mountain to monitor the matter, and lead the team with Jin Dan Hongyan and Wufu Qingmi. You can ignore the ban on the mountain and discover who among the demons dares to violate the ban. If the murder is committed, it will be executed on the spot, and there is no need to report it to the Xianxia Patriarch Hall. But whoever dares to kill indiscriminately among the Xianxia cultivators will end up on the same level as the demon clan. If the rewards and punishments are inappropriate, I will execute them, and I do not need to inform Dalongqiu." 3 consecutive executions were made, and everyone in the Patriarch Hall was in danger. Next, Situ Mengjing directly locked the moon-picking monkey and the Lao Yuan into confinement, and asked the 2 mountain guards to enshrine him in the Baotian, Immortal cave, and retreat for a period of time. Lao Yuan stood up tremblingly without any nonsense, just said a word of obeying the decree of the immortal sovereign, and his back walked out of the Patriarch's Hall sadly. The moon-picking monkey was full of anger, just about to speak to defend himself a few words, or I wanted to ask this immortal for an explanation, but I was kicked out of the house by Situ Mengjing directly with a sleeve and a chair, and then flicked his finger outside the gate, and the moon-picking ape who showed his real body and roared was like a heavy hammer. Flew directly out of Rui's tip, the huge body fell into the water and sank to the bottom, and then blood instantly filled the river. As for the great sage of the river and the great king of Huangshui, the fate was even worse, and they were immediately expelled. In addition to being immediately removed from the Xianxia genealogy list of the ancestors, Situ Mengjing also did not allow these 2 old fish to become elite Jindan cultivators to appear in the surrounding areas of Xianxia. There have been so many incidents and things are not trivial, but in the Ancestral Master Hall, the cultivators of the genealogy still dare not take a breath. The atmosphere is dignified and the needle drop can be heard. The 2 old fish spirits are still grateful to Dade, and they bowed to the immortal who gave such an inhumane decree, and both parties took the initiative to promise that they would never mention the old things. Devote himself to cultivation and dare not do anything wrong, so as not to be followed by people with intentions, which will damage Xianxia's reputation in the slightest. Situ Mengjing said indifferently, "I hope you will do what you say. This is the power of a Middle-earth immortal. What's more, Xianjun Longbeard also has a surname Situ." In addition, in Xianxia the new mountain master implements the family law, which is justifiable. Then there was Linghu Bananafish, who suddenly got 2 great blessings that would make nascent soul earth immortals covet. Situ Mengjing gave 2 treasures in one breath, to this female cultivator in the cave, who was the first to participate in the discussion at the Zushi Hall. A grain rain gourd. It was once owned by Lin Huizhi, the previous mountain owner, and is also Xianxia's mountain owner's token and treasure of Xianshan. Historically, it can only be passed down from generation to generation by mountain masters. Following the ancestors of the mountain gate, it can only be refined in small ways. The grain rain gourd cannot be refined as a life object. Layer support. And this gourd is also Lin Huizi's junior brother, Quan Kinkia's dream. It can even be said that the reason why he came down the mountain from Dalongqiu was because he was instructed by his parents to run towards this half-immortal soldier. Come because Quan Qingqiu has a good relationship with Guyu Gourd Avenue, which can help him improve the possibility of entering the Jade Pure realm. A fishing rod as short as a sword, wrapped around a bamboo pole with silver threads, flowing like the moonlight. This is the ancestral thing of Quan Qingqiu, which is equivalent to half a Dragon King basket. It uses the bright moon in the water as bait to fish for rare aquariums, especially the Narcissus monsters that worship the moon. Hong Yen, who was in charge of Xianxia's palm law, was full of envy, and suddenly noticed the line of sight of Immortal Longbeard. As a result, Hong Yen found that there was an unreasonable long-term silence in the council hall. When she raised her eyes slightly, she realized that everyone was looking at her. Hong Yen shifted her gaze again and found that the fairy was staring at her like that. Situ Mengjing asked, Hong Yen, talk about it. In your opinion, what is cultivation? Hong Yen was sweating instantly and she said in a trembling voice, return to Xianjun, cultivate and seek truth from me. This is one of the cultivating purposes of the Taiping Mountain, right? Situ Mengjing narrowed his eyes and said, oh? Hong Yen was sweating profusely like sitting on pins and needles. You have cultivated the Tao for more than 280 years, and you have cultivated the Tao to seek the truth, but you have cultivated a true self who is greedy for the Guyu gourd and the fishing rod? If you practice like this, where can't you practice? Why sit on the chair of Xiaolongqiu's palm law, wasting your mind and time? Why don't you accompany the two guardians of the mountain to worship together? Why, after waiting for Jiazi, the mountain will be closed and the ban will be lifted and I will return to Dalongqiu. Do you plan again? Who do you want to learn, your master Quan Kinkia's methods? Or Lin Huizi's ingenuity? Hong Yen quickly got up and knelt down again, prostrate on the ground, kowtow hard and begged Xianjun to forgive her sins. Situ Mengjing leaned his elbows on the chair handle and interlaced his hands, just looking at the Jindan female cultivator who kept kowtowing. Hong Yen just kowtows as long as that immortal monarch without saying a word. She continued to kowtow. The nun's forehead was blurred with blood, and there was a pool of blood on the mud brick floor. As a half-outsider, Wu Fu Qingmi sat with Linghu Banana Fish on the seat closest to the door. Speaking of means, a great cultivator in the immortal realm must have nothing to do with moving mountains and seas. When he did it, Qingmi would only feel a little surprised and miraculous, but he couldn't say how shocked or admired it was. The key is that Situ Mengjing is ruthless. Just such a small dragon, the huge immortal mansion that was only one step away from the word of Zhong. Just because of this person's arrival, the two nascent soul cultivators disappeared. There are 5 golden pills in total in the Patriarch's Hall today. 2 have been closed and 2 more will be driven away. If Hong Yen, who is the Patriarch of the Law, does nothing, then Xianxia's Earth Immortal Cultivator will really not be left. Could it be that this Immortal Longbeard or Dalongqiu is planning to give up Xianxiu and Tongyi's Hao completely? Situ Mengjing finally said, from today, Qingmi will be the head of Xiaolongqiu, and Hong Yen will only participate in the monitoring of the demon clan by going down the mountain as an ordinary cultivator, assisting Qingmi and committing crimes. See me, go directly to the treasury to get a sum of money from the gods, a spiritual tool, and the genealogy will be automatically removed. Qingmi hesitated for a moment, then stood up and clasped his fists and said, Situ Shan, please forgive me. Situ Mengjing asked with a smile. Do you think that being a martial artist is not in line with the etiquette system on the mountain? Or do you feel that you are not skilled enough to be a little dragon chiu? Immortal Longbeard finally had a smile on his face, and more than 20 people felt as if they had been granted amnesty. Qingmi is a military commander in the battlefield. He has always been upright and he said bluntly, there are. This burly man is just a seriously injured warrior with a golden body. He is very arrogant. Maybe in some small Tongyi's Hao country he may be able to shake his prestige and deceive the title of Grandmaster. Situ Mengjing smiled and said, the matter of etiquette is in Xianqiu and now I have the final say. Whether you can be a good Xianqiu, you don't think it's possible, but I think it's feasible. Qingmi choked for a moment. Damn it, if you weren't an immortal I would start scolding people. Situ Mengjing said, Xianqiu is closed and there is no need for a puppet who shows up to treat people and things. Just a discipline with clear rewards and punishments and fair treatment. As for the person who will save Xianxia's face, I alone are enough. Already. Every month in the future I will hold 3 preaching and teaching sessions. There are 3 types. The first type. All the direct descendants of the patriarch and the disciples of the inner and outer sects, even those who do not have the qualifications to practice, regardless of their status, can participate. The second type. Only the chi practitioners of the 5th realm can participate, and the last one, all those who have a bottleneck in the current realm, or who are ready to retreat, can participate. A discussion in the Patriarch's Hall, which was vigorous, concise, and to the point, ended just like that. This is very different from the time that Xiao Longqiu spent an hour or 2 at every turn. Situ Mengjing called on Linghu Banana Fish and went to Qingmi's mansion in the Wild Garden to let the warrior cook and make 3 bowls of oil-splashed noodles. Qingmi was really good at it and quickly brought out 3 bowls of noodles. After a bowl of noodles comes out of the pot, first throw some minced garlic, sprinkle a handful of dried chili peppers, and then drizzle with hot oil. The taste is absolutely delicious. Situ Mengjing smiled and nodded, full of praise. Qingmi has long been homeless, and the capital of his home country is extremely prosperous. Since the founding of the country there has been no night ban. The lights are brilliant and the night is like day. The only one who could chat for a while before the chief guest of the Taoist named Narcissus, Zhang Luzhu, disappeared. Umbrella Qingmi asked, "Mountain Master, is it the meaning of Delongqiu?" Situ Mengjing shook his head and said, "No, it's just my personal opinion." Qingmi was stunned. Situ Mengjing smiled and said, "First kill and then play. When Delongqiu hears the news, how can someone else come here to be the mountain owner? Reorganize the discussion of the Ancestor Hall, and then release the Moon Picker and Lao Yuan. Invite the great sage of the river and the great king of Huangshui back. Qingmi, if you are the suzerain of Delongqiu, do you think it is interesting to be so tossed?" Qingmi gave a thumbs up, feeling inappropriate and a little rude, and quickly put away the movements of his hands, grinning, happy. Situ Mengjing joked, "Don't take your thumb back, don't overwhelm your hand with a lot of money, don't blame people for courtesy." Qingmi took a sip of wine, wiped his mouth and smiled, "Say something inappropriate." At this moment, Immortal Monarch Longbeard is completely different from the Immortal Mountain Master who was discussing matters in the Patriarchal Hall. The Situ family is the top noble family in the Middle-earth Shenzhou, with a deep foundation on the mountain and down the mountain. Except for the main ancestral hall located in the Middle-earth Shenzhou, the branch ancestral temples and branch halls spread all over Jinjiazu and Luxiazu. Genealogy requires an aristocratic family whose cabinets are full of houses. In addition to Situ Mengjing, the great dragon Qiu Immortal, there are also 2 Jade Pure Realm Sword Immortals in the family. One is the chief worshipper of a certain sect in AI continent, and the other is a loose immortal whose ancestral home is of course in Middle-earth, but his native place is Luxiazu. In any case, a family that can have a living immortal and 2 Jade Pure Realm Sword Immortals at the same time is tantamount to a sect on a mountain with lush foliage. And that loose immortal is Luxiazu Sword Immortal Situ Jiu. This person has a withdrawn personality. He has always liked to be alone and has a very sparse relationship with his family. In his hometown there are not many friends even on the mountain. And later went to the Great Wall of Sword Chi, which was not well known. After all, in that place where swords were cultivated like clouds, the threshold for sword immortals was a bit high. Situ Jiu returned to Howren world alive, and he was like a lonely cloud and wild crane. He never participated in family ceremonies like ancestor worship, and he was still unwilling to start a sect. Moreover, the Situ family has another thing that is extremely famous, that is, family women who are often stunning, so the Situ family is recognized as a beauty nest. Situ Mengjing finished eating the noodles, put down his chopsticks, exhaled a long breath, rubbed his eyebrows and had a headache. Situ Jiu had previously received a letter from Feijian sent by himself. Originally, Situ Mengjing and this Luxiazu Sword Immortal had never had any friendship. The last time they met was when Situ Jiu returned to Howren, traveled in Middle-earth and passed by Delongqiu. The last time, Situ Mengjing couldn't remember exactly what happened hundreds of years ago, and he was not impressed by the cultivator of the same family with a rebellious temperament. It is estimated that both sides are like this and they are not pleasing to the eye. Situ Jiu quickly replied with a letter to Delongqiu. After Situ Mengjing opened the letter, he could feel a spit of saliva coming to his face. The other party cursed in the letter, and sure enough, you were right, Situ Mengjing. When we met for the first time I thought you were a glib and fake gentleman. This Situ Mengjing can't laugh or cry, so much so that until now, Situ Mingjing doesn't know what went wrong with his family letter. The letter I sent earlier, roughly speaking, just said that the young hidden official would visit Luxiazu in the future and promise to find Situ Jiu for a drink. Damn, the Situ Jiu, the wording in the letter is really not ordinary. Everyone is an ancestor, who do you scold? It doesn't matter, it's like being bitten by a dog. Situ Mingjing suddenly asked, Linghu Banana Fish, do you know why I want to seal up the mountain for a period of 100 years? The girl shook her head, not pretending to be stupid, she really didn't know. Situ Mingjing said, Dragon Qiu, I hope that Xiaolong Qiu who goes down the mountain can join the sect, and the idea has not changed. Situ Mingjing didn't go around in circles and said bluntly, I am a mountain master here and I will personally teach you the Dalongqiu secret preaching method. The relationship between you and me is similar to an anonymous master and apprentice. 60 years later, you will, whether it is in the Jindan realm or the nascent soul realm, they will all take over the position of the mountain master. Even if there is someone in the same sect with a higher realm than you, such as Hong Yan, who has just been removed as the master of the law, and Lin Huizi's personal biography disciple, I will not change the decision I made today. The only case is an exception unless Xiaolong Qiu suddenly emerges a genius similar to Yu Guizong Qiuji, who can enter the realm of jade within 60 years. But this kind of thing is almost impossible. Linghu Banana Fish's face paled and he said in a trembling voice, Master Patriarch, why me? The girl felt that she was not the material to be a mountain master at all. Not to mention that she couldn't compare to the previous mountain master, MasterQingshuang, and her uncle Quan Qingqiu. Even if she faced the pair of sisters who were direct disciples of Lin Huizhi, she would still feel somewhat ashamed. So the girl sat at the table absent-minded, thinking about how to find a reason to return the two treasures to the ancestors' hall. Situ Mingjing smiled and asked, Why can't it be you? Linghu Banana Fish was speechless. The head of a family, the head of a mountain, the head of a sect, and the head of a country. What do you think these identities have in common? About the feeling that the girl couldn't give the answer, Situ Mingjing asked himself and answered, It's the source of water. So it is necessary to clear the source. Only the water at the source is clear. Even if the water is slender, it is better than the turbid water source and several water veins that seem to grow stronger. I didn't come up with this statement, but the young hidden official. The other party told me this, which was not only a kind of friendly chat, but also an explicit statement that was not implied. Situ Mingjing said with a smile. That's why I was on Dalongqiu's side and proposed that you be the next Xianxia mountain master, so that the decision of the Patriarch Hall will be passed smoothly and become a conclusion. Otherwise, just based on my realm and qualifications it can be done, but it is necessary to have a good time with people and grind one's lips. The reason is very simple: the Luopao Mountain in Beipingzu, the Qingping Sword Sect in Tongdishao, and the Taiping Mountain in Huangting. All of a sudden you have 3 more sect allies. Pay attention, it is you, not Xianxia. When you become the mountain master, Xianxia can follow. Qingmi nodded. That's the truth. The girl was first confused, then shocked, and finally stunned. Wow, so I'm so good I don't even know it. Charming and cute. Situ Mingjing also smiled. Just like the conclusion that the young hidden official made when he was chatting with himself, he wanted to change the customs and focus on the original and clear source. Songlai Country Hushan School, an elegant house built on the lakeside, hangs a plaque in the Tianliang Pavilion. There is a woman who is taking a pen to transcribe a Daoist book. The table is near the window and there are several old plum trees outside the window. Qingxiu's secluded place, a room of pure heart. Breathe the lake and drink the mountains and roll up the Tianlu Tunshi Canal. The former sentence is the origin of the Hushan school, and the latter sentence is more like a prophecy. The woman's heart moved slightly and she frowned slightly. She raised her head and looked outside the door. Then she stood up, breathing long, her steps were light and she walked in harmony with the world. If we must use a certain expression to describe this mysterious situation, it is literally walking the road for the sky. Walking the way of the road. In the vast world, a golden elixir and earth immortal would not have such a mysterious atmosphere that resonates with heaven and earth. However, if she leaves the blessed land and goes to the vast world, she will naturally lose the true meaning of this unique avenue. She was wearing an apricot robe with a cold temperament and a very beautiful appearance, looking at the man in the blue shirt standing by the lake. This person has not changed a lot from the previous years above a portrait of Hushan school that has been treasured for many years, but she still recognizes her identity at a glance. She made a bow. Gao Jun, the contemporary head of the Hushan school, has seen Qin Banxian. Qin Pingon knew that it was the old cook and Pei Xiang teaming up to pit him. Qin Pingon asked, "Master Gao recognizes me?" Gao Jun looked neither humble nor arrogant, smiled and said, "I used to be fortunate to follow you Zushi to the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, but at that time I was not good at learning and my Taoism was shallow, and I was fortunate to witness Qin Xianxian's peerless style, but unfortunately I can only watch it from a distance. I barely recognize Qin Xianxian." Qin Pingon asked straight to the point, "Do you know the origin of this world and its connection with the outside world?" Gao Jun nodded and said, "Before Ancestor Yu feathered Ascension, he had a face-to-face interview with me. Zushi Yu roughly shared some of his speculations and opinions. For example, the outside world is called Hauran Tianxiao and there are Juzhou mountains and rivers and the mountains and rivers are vast. The top 10 caves, the 36 small caves, and the 72 blessed places are in the hands of some noble sections. Our lotus flower blessed land is located in Tonggishao, where the exiled immortals come here to experience the red dust and sharpen their hearts. Traveling in the mountains and waters, playing in the world, each has his own needs. As for Qin Jiangxian's identity, place of origin and background, it is blank. I have traveled down the mountain for 3 years and I know that the weather changes along with the location and people, there are great changes, and there are many unprecedented strange things in the world. But over the years I have never met any exiled immortals from other places." Qin Pingon nodded and said, "The whole is deep and profound and you can observe the heart of heaven." Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and asked, "Qin Jianxian, can you take the liberty to ask if I compete with you in the way of life and death, what are the chances of winning?" Back then when Yuzushi went down the mountain and went to the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom to wander the muddy water, he had just formed pills. Qin Pingon had no choice but to give a statement from his conscience. Sect leader Gao occupies the right place at the right time, and there is always a 10% chance of winning. Sword of Coming Chapter 991. There are days outside the sky and there are people outside people. The fallen plums are like piles of snow. When Gao Jun heard this, she didn't think that the other party was alarmist and deliberately deceived herself, so she could only sigh faintly. She has practiced Xianxia magic all these years, and it is not difficult to say that she is not diligent and diligent. She has never wanted to face this exiled immortal who has returned to the blessed land, and she still has only a 10% chance of winning. Since the other party dared to come to the Hushan faction alone, he must have something to rely on, or his own strength is strong enough, or there is a helping hand hidden in the dark. Not to mention that in the encirclement and suppression of various forces in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, this young man is handsome. Jianxian was surrounded by heavy siege but in the end he stood out. He went to the city to kill Ding Ying and sat in the capital, which made Yuzushi dare not step into the capital. After this battle his name moved the world. Gao Jun ordered with his heart, "Withdraw the formation." Before the ascension of Master Yu he left a hand-painted picture of the immortal formation for the Hushan school. But Master Yu made it clear that the mountain protection formation can only be a fantasy for the time being. Only when the vision of manna falling from the sky can it be put into practice. Gao Jun, who has always respected the teacher and the Tao, obeyed the decree of the law. After retreating and leaving the customs he went out alone. He traveled for several years, visited the 5 mountains in the world and visited the immortals in the mountains alone, hoping to find someone in the same way. At the same time, combined with Eugenius' legacy, the picture, climb the world's 5 mountains in small world, in the middle of the mountain, Gao Jun climbs all the way. There is no way the ridge of the world emerges in the clouds, only to know that this mountain is the first, on the top of the mountain that seems to hang in the sea of clouds. Gao Jun actually found a relic of an immortal cultivating with thatch, but it can only be regarded as a relic, not a monument, because many objects in the thatched hut are exquisite, but after a while there are still pines and cypresses in the brazier. Gao Jun can completely imagine the burning of a senior immortal. In the story of Bayin Taoism in the northern mountain, the mountains are different from the world. When the heat outside the mountains is scorching hot, the mountains are still covered with snow. The mountain spirit looked arrogant and regarded Gao Jun as a people from the country, but the other party probably saw that Gao Jun's Taoism was not shallow. Although he didn't like her trespassing on the mountain gate, he did not speak ill of her but only reminded Gao Jun. In this mountain you cannot rely on your strength to take things and seize treasures. When the weather is clear, you can see the top of Dongyue in the sea, purple clouds are formed on the stone. The sea is bright and the sun is red. Suddenly thunder and lightning are mixed. The wind and rain are raging, the day is dark as night. And you can see with your own eyes a mountainside deep pool in the sky. Poisonous dragon, Qingming nodded with essence, majestic earth veins, body as long as 100 zhang, winding mountain climbing, crushing countless rocks. A few blinks of an eye, the poisonous dragon wandering around the peak, then created a mountain like a snake walking 18. The brand new stone path of the plate was smashed by a tall crowned man with pale golden eyes, holding a white jade seal with ancient characters like bird seals. After being knocked down into the long tan, a Taoist tactic appeared on the surface of the water. Thousands of golden words, like a decree of immortal formation, will be suppressed at the bottom of the pool. Punish it for 300 years of spiritual cultivation in the deep pool before it can see the light of day again. In Xia, where the peaks were dangerous and murderous, Gao Jun saw a young-looking scribe full of Taoism and invited Gao Jun, who was dressed in apricot and yellow robes, to be a guest in the cave. Shrinking his hands and twisting the talisman, he followed the young scribe, and saw the grand mansion standing in the red and yellow clouds, like an imperial palace built in the sky. They are all non-living people walking in the middle. The breeze is blowing on the face with the fragrance of bluegrass. The literati laughed and said that this is smoked wind, rare in the world, unique to my mountain, not only can enter the face of the 7 orifices to benefit the root of Taoism, but also can be a common woman. Nourishing the face, a portrait of a goddess was hung in the main hall. Immediately a maid brought the incense stick. The scribe first rolled out 3 sticks of incense for Gao Jun, saying that the incense in the world is divided into mountains and rivers, and then he took Gao Jun to burn incense and pray to Lingyue. In Xianxia, after they took their seats, the scholar asked Gao Jun if he was married, and if he was willing to become a Taoist partner. After visiting the famous mountains and rivers in the world, Gao Jun finally perfected the immortal picture left by Yuzushi, set up the formation hub, and followed the instructions of the Taoist book on refining objects. Gao Jun carefully selected a few pieces that can naturally instill the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The treasure is closely connected with the mountain roots and water veins of the Hushan school, and the immortal sword left by Yuzushi is the mainstay. And finally a great mountain protection formation with both offense and defense is created. If Eugenie was the first person to attain the Tao and after all he was alone, then Gao Jun was the true founder of the Hushan school. Protect the way and spread the branches and leaves. Before Qin Pingan appeared, he had done some rough landscape exploration. It could be seen that after the proper management of the Hushan sect over the years, if Gao Jun could one day achieve nascent soul realm and secure his position as the #1 person in the world, he would find it again. If a suitable successor can make another golden pill, then in the next 300 to 500 years, there will be disciples and talents in the sect. People will practice martial arts and cultivate their true spirits, and the 2 will not be delayed. Gao Jun asked, "Can I ask Qin Xianxian's age on the mountain again?" Qin Pingan shook his head with a smile and said euphemistically, "The guests in the mountains don't say longevity." Gao Jun asked again, "In the vast world, are there many people who have attained the Tao like Qin Xianxian?" Qin Pingan had no choice but to nod and say, "A lot. But there's no such thing as Tongxian and Dao. There are indeed many Qi practitioners in the nascent soul realm." Gao Jun inevitably looked a little sad, looked up at the sky. It's not easy to practice in the mountains after all, it's just a frog at the bottom of the well. If you don't know that the scenery outside is magnificent and the wind is high in the sky, that's all. It happened to be Gao Jun, a mountaintop Qi cultivator who knew the affairs of Tianwai, and was so worried that he didn't dare to slack off in the slightest. Over the years, Gao Jun has always had the worst idea. One day exiled immortals like Qin Pingan will be jealous of the treasures of this blessed land. They will gather for profit and visit together. It will be like rain falling on the world. How do you resist foreign enemies? But to tell her to plan secretly now, work together, plan ahead with Qi practitioners and great masters from all over the world, and then make a covenant with those landscape gods, it really makes Gao Jun feel that he is out of power, and he is afraid that he will be able to stop him. 1 or 2 banished immortals and then Qin Pingan, these heavenly immortals are really in a group, the whole world, wouldn't life be ruined? The immortals fight, each showing their magical powers, but it is no different than the masters in the past. At most it will bring disaster to a city. The number of Qi practitioners is more than 1, and then completely let go of their hands and feet and offer endless attack magic weapons. Inside is a tragic tragedy. So in the depths of Gao Jun's heart he had a bold idea. She gradually understood what Ding Ying had done. Of course she didn't agree, but she understood. Gao Jun wanted to meet the god, who was in charge of the operation of the avenue behind the scenes, the sun and the moon as the dojo and the mountains and rivers as the courtyard. Gao Jun wanted to personally ask the other party whether he could protect the world and how he could not become a training ground for those exiled immortals from other places. Qin Pingon said, "Sect leader Gao does not need to underestimate himself. All the cultivators in history who can break the bottleneck of the blessed land, and almost without exception, are still well-deserved geniuses on the mountain." The criminal officer Hao Su is the best proof. It is only said that his family is Luobaitian. There are 4 people in the picture scroll, plus Master Zhong, who has been away from the blessed land for 30 years. Among them, Zhou Xian is already at the top of Wufu Mountain, and the right side of Sui is also a sword cultivator in the nascent soul. Gao Jun asked tentatively, "Qin Jianxian, can I show you around?" Qin Pingon smiled and nodded. "You have to work. The lake is beautiful, the lotus flowers are 10,000, the wind is clear and the water is clear. The peach and willows on both sides of the river are in full bloom, and the mountains are seen in the mirror." The 2 sides walked on a long bridge across the lake. Gao Jun couldn't help but ask, "Dare to ask Qin Jianxian, how is Yuzushi now and where is he?" Speaking of which, Gao Jun laughed dumbly to himself, as if he had been asking this question after meeting this Qin Jianxian. After Yuzushi left, there were still many major events in this world. For example, a strange person who was born out of nowhere, Lu Tai, the new leader of the demon sect, easily reunited with the remnants of Ding Ying's old clan, but he had no intention of plotting to change it. Big, but instead focused on the Hushan school. After Yuzushi became a land god, he had 3 retreats, 2 of which were seized by Lu Tai and forced to break through the mountain gate and forcibly interrupted the retreat. 2 life and death battles were unsuccessful. The winner was decided, which caused Yuzushi to delay for many years and failed to. The 2 sides fought against the wind in vain, and also let the warriors in the world watching the battle from a distance on the earth really understand what is called the fighting method of the immortals on the mountain, which can teach the sun and the moon to pale and the mountains and rivers to shake. After this giant of the Devil's Way disappeared for no reason, Lu Tai taught a young genius who did not practice immortality but had excellent swordsmanship, and liked to oppose the Hushan faction as well. This unnamed young man has only been practicing swordsmanship in the mountains for several years, and he has already mastered swordsmanship. When this person came down the mountain, Yuzushi just had a feather and sword. The first battle of the young swordsman was to ask the Jianhushan faction. The person who took over the sword was Gao Jun, the contemporary head of the sect. She slightly outperformed the other party by half, and the 2 parties agreed to have a competition 10 years later. However, after the 10-year deadline, the young swordsman missed the appointment and there was no news. Gao Jun later visited the Immortal, and he also had the intention of looking for this person. Qin Pingon said, "He is already in another world and his realm is even further." Gao Jun was relieved and a big stone fell in his heart. Because Lu Tai, the leader of the demon sect with ulterior motives and deceitful behavior, once sneaked into the Hushan sect, and after finding Gao Jun he told an extremely cruel metaphor, saying that the first person here after ranking in the Immortal sect will be at the bottom, so don't look at how majestic your ancestor Yu is here. When he reaches the sky, he is a little boy who cleans the courtyard in the palace of Xianjun. No matter how bad luck is, he can only be a manure picker and water the vegetable garden, so you quickly persuade Eugenie to be the head of a chicken rather than the tail of a phoenix. Eugenie has a lot of history and there is the prophecy of living in the world for thousands of years, always like a boy's color, and the person who said this prophecy is. Anyway, the Dao and Fa are too high. Qin Pingon said, "Sect leader Gao will leave this place in the future and travel farther away. There is a chance to reunite with your ancestor Yu." In Qin Pingan's view, the view of the Hushan sect based on merit alone is completely different from the view of the world. If it wasn't for Gao Jun inheriting Yu Zhenya's mantle and becoming the #1 person in the Lotus Root blessed land, then the Hushan faction would have slowed down one step at a time, and eventually lost its first mover advantage, and was trained by Wei Liang of Nanyuan Kingdom. Sergeant left behind. Because the face created by Zhu Lian obviously bears the true meaning of the talisman, Qin Pingon is also curious about it now. Since Zhu Lian has clearly touched the threshold of cultivating the immortal method, why did he stop at it? The spiritual energy of the heaven and earth is still thin, but the more so, the higher the threshold for cultivation to become an immortal. Once someone takes the lead in cultivating Taoism, such as walking on a single plank bridge, it is easier to occupy the sky alone. The same is true of foreign affairs. Of course, Gao Jun is more willing to believe this Qin Jianxian, that Lu Tai, who deliberately used words to confuse the human heart, is extremely abominable. Qin Pingan said slowly, on the way of cultivating the Tao, climbing through the layers of the ground, and also cultivating the mind and self-cultivation, the two are indispensable. The flying bird is narrow and green, I will be the top of the mountain, and when the mountain has no way, I will be the peak or the water. Look at the clouds rising from the pour, and if the gate of Zen is broken, you will hear thunder on the ground. Gao Jun thought about it carefully, nodded and said, Qin Jiangxian's words are exquisite, like the words of a in the clouds. Qin Pingan laughed dumbly. Gao Jun admits that he is not a person who is proficient in common affairs and sophistication. The reason why he is able to serve as the head of the Hushan school is that Yu Zushi issued a decree, and at the same time helped her to remove all obstacles in secret, and she was indeed born suitable for the cultivation of immortals. The technique is the fastest to break through. For Gao Jun, it was like a heavenly gate suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. Once in the world, if you wanted to become a master who looked down on princes, you could only practice martial arts and boxing and become a great master of martial arts. The road can be taken. In the past, the real people and spirits who lived on the land above the books on the gods, demons and monsters in the world in the past are no longer out of reach and have become the people around you. She is the luckiest one in the Hushan faction. Otherwise, Eugenie had come to the conclusion that if she followed her ancestor to the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, if she just walked on the road of martial arts in this life, she would at most become a master of the world like the national teacher Chong Qiu and the Empress Zhu Shuzhen. Gao Jun looked a little guilty. Qin Jianxian knows everything and he will answer any questions. Gao Jun would like to thank him sincerely. Qin Pingan joked. Sect leader Gao just asks, I will never be bored. It has always been said that he has the habit of being a good teacher and his personality is hard to change. As expected, Gao Jun was no longer polite and continued to ask. Qin Jianxian said earlier that the realm is climbing higher and higher, and cultivation is like climbing up the stairs, so we cultivators, can we have specific divisions and names of realms? Qin Pingan nodded and said, the 5 realms, Dongfu means that the human body is connected with the outside world, such as building a bridge, opening the door and beginning to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The word watching the sea is taken from I climb up the building and watch the hundreds of rivers, and when I enter the sea I enter my arms. Climb a high building to look at the sea and know the greatness of the world. After a certain number of cave dwellings, people who practice Taoism continue to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Keep it, feed back the body, warm the soul, and keep expanding the riverbed waterways and meridians like the continuous flow of the river. Like laying a post-road official road. Long men, Qi practitioners scattered the aura of Qi mansion as if condensed into a water dragon upstream like water. Whether it can finally jump over the long men in one fell swoop is a great threshold. Becoming it, you can find a Dan room in Xuanji and Xuanzhong. Don't open the sky, so there is a saying on the mountain that to form a golden alchemist the party is my generation. If you can't get through it, the aura can't be rushed against the current 3 times, resulting in Dantianqi. The sea is completely dry, and it is very likely that he will fall down and stop at the cave for his entire life. However, Qi practitioners condense a golden elixir and the elixir becomes several grades, just like the secular imperial examination, and there is a clear distinction between superior and inferior. A gold elixir, the level of condensed pills, the size of a pill room, and whether the formation of pills can evoke a vision that resonates with the heavens and the earth, all have their own particulars. Can be regarded as a unique gift, and this is one move. After this, it is the Yuan Ying who can travel far away from the Yin spirit, supplemented by the Yang spirit outside the body to sit in the small world. As the book says, the great master Lingran controls the wind and travels freely between heaven and earth. Generally speaking, Jin Dan and Yuan Ying are collectively referred to as the stream of earth immortals. Qi practitioners travel alone in the vast world, mountains and rivers. Even if they establish a sect and serve as the founder of the mountain, there is still no problem. I speculate that your ancestor Yu was a first-grade Dan Qing, and the rank of Jin Dan, the head of Gao, generally belongs to the 2nd grade, which is quite good. Even in the vast world, having a 2nd-grade golden pill is something that many immortals dream of but can't get. The fate of fate. Simple to say, easy to understand. Seemingly chatting, Qin Pingon just talked about some common sense of monasticism that is not so profound and obscure in the Howren world. Maybe the earth immortals of Xianxia Mountain can say it casually. But for Gao Jun, who needs to experience and comprehend everything by himself, it is the first-class golden and jade good words. These words have the power of clearing the clouds and seeing the sun, and their preciousness is not inferior to the Taoism left by the ancestors of Yu. But Qin Pingon was just talking and said some unintentional remarks with Gao Jun. In the final analysis, he just regarded her as a fellow Daoist on the road of cultivation in the future, and said a few ordinary words with a normal heart. As a result, when the words came to an end in an instant, Qin Pingon actually moved slightly in his heart and couldn't help but look around. In the dark, there seemed to be some kind of indescribable sense of heaven and man, as if he had received a glimpse of this world. Appreciation and recognition. Feeling relieved, there is no longer the stagnant feeling of walking in the Hushan school before. At this moment, Qin Pingon felt more deeply about a certain sentence of the abbot of Nanyuan Xianxiang Temple, and a certain truth of watching the night trial of Qinghuang Temple back then. Drilling pot umbrella, chain, teaching, chanting at the same time, it also verified Zhou Lian's guess that this lotus root blessed land is very likely to have a prototype of little god, just waiting for opening and then refining. In fact, the previous blessed land literary movement, the appearance of a woman who was born and manifested, and then discovered by longevity, can be regarded as a sign of some kind of natural occurrence. Today, when Qin Pingon returned to the blessed land after many years, he quickly gained a certain degree of resonance between the world and the world. Could it be that the old cook's mouth has really opened up? Gao Jun could not perceive this vision of heaven and earth. She just immersed in it and asked curiously, what kind of realm is above the 5 realms and the earth immortals? The first realm of the upper 5 realms is called Yupu. Pure jade? It means returning to the original flawless beauty? Qin Pingon nodded with a smile. Returning to the truth and going back to the original will not be disgraced for life. It is like a plastic body without dirt, a tower without leaks, and a person who is able to stay clean of the world. A cultivator who has entered this realm, even if a frog at the bottom of the well jumps to the mouth of the well, even if it is far away from the sky. It is far away, but it is possible to look at the world with a vision that is closer to the whole picture and the truth. In the history of Lotus Flower Blessed Land, Yushini was regarded as the pioneer of Taoism, and naturally there was no specific realm division. Even Yushini made a lot of careful attempts and extreme caution about the Yin gods traveling far away. Therefore, Gao Jun has not dared to travel far away easily. He only dared to choose the auspicious day when the sky is clear and clear. In the middle of the night when the moon was clear and white, he only tried to get out of the body, in the thousands of miles around the Hushan school. Back then, Ding Ying, who was in the battle of life and death with Ding Ying, who monopolized the martial arts of heaven and earth, did not know what secret method he used, but he was able to escape from the body and transform into a majestic Dharma figure as high as Gunyu Mountain. Gao Jun still has lingering fears and is fascinated by it when he wants to come. Unfortunately, she did not practice at that time, and laymen can only watch the excitement. Otherwise it will be a once-in-lifetime excellent opportunity to observe the Tao, and the benefits are endless. After crossing the bridge to the other side of the lake, there is a low mountain not far away. There is a temple of the ancestors of the Hushan school built on it. For the time being, only one ancestor is enshrined. It was created after Yu Zhenya's ascension, and the shape was recorded according to some secret records, which was completely different from the specifications of the ancestral hall of Jianghu sect. Gao Jun suddenly asked a question of reconciliation of text and reconciliation of reality, which is a very important meaning of Confucianism and Taoism. Qin Pingon smiled knowingly, knowing that Gao Jun's question had profound meanings, but he still knew everything and said everything, and at the same time he had some new understanding of Gao Jun. It seems that she has been living in the mountains and concentrating on cultivating these years, and has watched a lot of book. To say that Qin Pingon can be unique and express his new ideas on the basis of the knowledge of the former sages, Qin Pingon has no confidence at all, but it can be said that he just copied the opinions in the book and roughly sorted it out, relying on Qin Pingon's reading memory and sorting experience. Then don't say Gao Jun, even with the Confucian temple, the academy, and the academy's mountain chief can fight for a long time without stage fright. Gao Jun's question is not just for the Hushan faction, but for all cultivators in the world. It is a pass that is destined to be avoided. The Hushan faction now has more than a dozen Qi practitioners, but except for Gao Jun's 2 seniors from her division who have entered the 5th realm, the rest are only in the lower 5 realms. In this Hushan faction, it has always been known for its strict hierarchy and cumbersome sect rules, so when they saw the leader Gao Jun and a blue-shirt man with an unfamiliar face. Even though there were storms in their hearts, they still didn't dare to show the slightest strangeness. When there is a world where all living beings can climb mountains and practice, there will be many unimaginable spirits out of thin air, and there will be real bright roads and different paths between people and ghosts outside of books, especially the difference between the immortals on the mountains and the mountains. It is more visible to the naked eye. The Hushan faction is now the most well-deserved faction in the world, or the immortal mansion on the mountain. The sect master Gao Jun, who has practiced the magic of the fairy family, has already proved the Tao, so she has skills in her beauty. In the past 20 years her appearance has hardly aged at all. Instead it is tempered like golden sand, carved with rough jade, and her skin and bones are constantly changing. After removing impurities and blemishes, there is already an earth immortal's body like golden branches and jade leaves. Just like Eugenie, who joined forces with Chongqiu to kill an exiled immortal, and after getting the immortal sword and a immortal book, his appearance changed from a white-haired old man to a middle-aged, young and strong, and then at least an old man when he finally left the customs, appearing in Nanyuan country. Eugenie is Yu Jian Chengfeng's childish appearance. The unity of man and nature, rejuvenation. This kind of thing is indeed an extravagant hope for those who practice martial arts. When a world where everyone has a certain longevity, there are Qi practitioners, the appearance of the sky and the inner temperament will undergo earth-shaking changes. The most fundamental thing is that there is a hidden orthodox dispute, which involves the relationship between the text and reality that Gao Jun wants to know, and also whether the Hushan school can be justified. The sea of books is vast and boundless, with 3 teachings and questions, plus 100 schools of thought. There are more than 1,000 scriptures. Qin Pingon spoke eloquently and Gao Jun listened carefully. There is a Hunpu pavilion on the mountain road with the word Song Lai on the plaque. The ancient trees around the pavilion are all trees that hug each other. The shade of the trees is lush, the shadows are shattered, the wind shakes, and the mountain pavilion is like autumn water. There is a gurgling stream next to it, the clear stream lingers and old pines stand on their backs. The branches and leaves on the top of the trees are particularly lush. The green leaves fall down like small blue buildings, and the sound of water comes from the top and bottom of the pine leaves, like the sound of heaven. Pedestrians climb the mountain, take a short break here, look at the distant lake view, have a wide field of vision, feel relaxed and happy and have a bright vision. Gao Jun invited Qin Pingon to stop here to enjoy the scenery. The group of exiled immortals, including Qin Pingon, Zhou Fei from Chunqiao Palace, Lu Fong from Bird's Eye View, Feng Qingbai, a ranger Tong Qingqing from Jingxin's High, and Fan Guaner, to be precise, these 2 are actually Taiping. Mountain Yellow Court. Logically speaking, aside from Qin Ping's accidental entry into the Blessed Land, Lu Fong and Huang Ting were supposed to be in this world like a fish in water, but instead they were in a muddled situation. At least failed to win against local people like Ding Ying and Eugenie. Probably this is the will of God. God is always not so fond of foreigners who seem to have an innate advantage. Maybe this is also a human nature? On the border between the northern Jin Kingdom and the Songlai Kingdom, there is an ancient city, which has always been a land of fish and rice. There is a water gate called Fengmen in the south of the city. Most of the delicacies enter the city through this gate, and the ladies and nobles in the city, when they are out on a spring outing or when the lotus flowers are in full bloom, they will come out of the city and gather in the waters around the lotus by boat. For the weft, the water is densely covered and the shuttles come and go. The women on the boat are all exquisite in makeup, competing for their beauty, and the children of Yui spend a lot of money to set up a boat feast. There are literati elegant gatherings on both sides of the strait. Exploring flowers is also a pleasing thing to the eyes, so there are often poor young children who make a living by picking up the embroidered shoes left by the beauties on the water and shore. Only half a mile away from the lotus flower, there is a village and wild pulp workshop. The drying field is covered with snow-white pulp. There is a fish market by the river that temporarily gathers and sells parallel products such as fish, shrimp, turtle and crab, and there are boats gathering in the lake. Compared to this place, It seems extraordinarily secluded and shabby, but there is a man and a woman who are out of tune with such a scene. Along the way, the masters of the pulp mill are frequently looking at him. Okay, it's not so surprising, it's still a moving woman sitting on horseback as if walking out of a picture scroll. She was wearing a bright red silk robe with sleeves and a jasper belt at the waist, lined with a brocade skirt with flowers, and the skirt and tie were embroidered with clouds and phoenixes. The woman stepped on a pair of matching plain satin shoes, and as the horseback bumped up and down, occasionally a small white silk socks were slightly exposed. With such a makeup and color matching, it is easy for people to be unable to suppress the clothes, but she looks good when she wears it. Under a tree, there is a burly young and strong man resting cross-legged here, looking at the old man who looks like a servant. Most of the refining masters, who have never worn the name of the world, are not the Tang Tie who usurped the throne and proclaimed himself emperor. The old man smiled and asked, "You are Zhou Xian, let's find it." Zhou Xian said helplessly, "He came to me specifically? What does your majesty think? Didn't I make it clear that I would have someone tell me? I will neither make enemies of the northern Jin nor seek refuge in the Songlai kingdom. Those who are so haunted have all chased the border between northern Jin and Songlai." The old man was hunched, let go of the horse's reins, put his hands behind him and said with a smile, "Tang Tie is a green onion, please don't move me." Zhou Qian chuckled. The old man has a good tone. In this northern Jin kingdom, dare to say that His Majesty the Emperor Tang Tie, the former general of Longwu, made a trip to Nanyuan. After returning home, the Emperor of Northern Jin quickly gave Tang Tie permission. The latter changed his body and sat on the dragon chair. It is said that there are some twists and turns here, because back then in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, Tang Tie wanted to betray the Northern Jin dynasty, but the old Emperor Wei Liang abdicated, Wei Yan ascended the throne, and Princess Wei Zhen did not want to marry Tang Tie. Touched by a grey nose, Tang Tie returned to the Northern Jin Kingdom. With a fierce attack, he raised troops at the border, marched north and led a large army to suppress the capital. The Northern Jin Kingdom changed its dynasty and surname. Zhou Qian asked, "Is it a human being or a ghost, or a fairy?" Nowadays the world is weird and all kinds of weird people and weird things come out all at once. It seems that the turning point is the Battle of 10 People. After a few years, the mystical claims in the book have become true. In the past few years, the man has encountered many unimaginable oddities in his single-handed journeys. The woman was always sitting on the horse, squinting and smiling. Zhou Qian disliked this the most and sneered, "Fox spirit." Pei Xiang covered his mouth and smiled. It was the lord of the fox country and Zhu Lian who came to see Zhou Qian. Zhu Lian said, "Young people shouldn't be so aggressive. As someone who has come here, I'd like to give you 2 pieces of advice. It's better to provoke men than women. It's better to provoke busy people than idle people." Zhou Qian said angrily, "Stop beating around the bush, tell me what's your background. What do you want to do with me?" When it comes to catching and fighting, he really does not worry about Tang Tie, the armed sage Qing Yuanshan, these old antiques who have been famous in the arena for a long time, and the sword sharpener Lu Zong, disappearing and disappearing, retiring and retiring. Every battle is a battle. The battle of 10 people in the world, these old guys who belonged to the previous generation of Jianghu, it seems that it will not help. Once Ding Ying died, all the limelight in the whole world was taken away by Yu Zhini and Lu Tai. The first person of each of them, one said to be ascending, the other disappeared without a trace, and the other rivers and lakes became leaderless. Instead, a large number of things that knew the magic of immortality appeared, as well as some inexplicable mountain gods, Narcissus and sneaky monsters. Just like the woman on horseback in front of her, she looks like a ghost. How can a secular woman look so good-looking? The old man smiled and said, "When you go out, treat people with sincerity. First, register your number. My name is Zhu Lian. As for the elder sister on horseback, her name is Pei Xiang. You just said she is a vixen, so just pretend that you can talk and praise her. Look good." Zhou Qian frowned. "Which Zhu Lian?" Zhu Lian smiled and said, "The one you think is the most unlikely." The burly man put his arms around his chest, turned his head and spat a mouthful of phlegm on the ground and sneered, "If you were Zhu Lian, I would be Ding Ying." The ugly old man in front of him has the only similarity with that Zhu Lian, that is, there is a great beauty by his side and her beauty is probably what the book said about the country and the city. Of course Zhu Lian knew Tang Tie, and also admired Zhou Xian as well as the elders of the rivers and lakes such as Qing Yuanshan. Why did the world still fail to break through the world before the skyrocketing martial arts in the Blessed Land? Only because the mountains and rivers lost their color and became a white drawing. With very few exceptions, all sentient beings in the Blessed Land are reduced to the end of their souls, but the people in the game are unaware of this. In addition, Tang Tie has secretly switched to practicing magic, but the martial arts foundation is good. The higher the realm, if it becomes a burden, it is not as good as the Hushan faction. Gao Jun is as small as the boat. Otherwise the first golden-bodied warrior in the Blessed Land will not be able to turn to the junior Zhou Xian in front of him. Zhou Xian waved her hand. Don't make fun of yourself, it's not worth it to risk your life for the reward of silver. Those who dare to say that they will definitely win against him, including Gao Jun, the head of the Hushan faction, have at most one hand in the entire world. If you can fight him and then decide the winner, then add another hand. The old guy in front of him, whose footsteps and breathing are very sparse, even if he is a deeply hidden martial arts master, Zhou Xian will definitely not be among the 10 people even if he looks at the old man highly. As a result, Zhou Xian saw that the old man was still eager to try, so he slowly moved forward, moved carefully and rubbed his hands together. My generation of martial arts practitioners pay attention to a dignified character. If you don't learn from each other, you will admit defeat. How to know the outcome? Like words. Move first, then stand still. The emaciated old man holds one hand behind the back, hands the palm with the other and smiles. Come here, let me see the weight of the fists and feet of the #1 Grandmaster of the Northern Jin Kingdom. Zhou Xian said helplessly, Is it all right to call you old senior? Hurry up and go back. You are so old, so why go into this muddy water? Don't think that I am good-natured, but I can push myself hard. Why don't I give you a young man as well? My advice: when you are old, you have to obey the old. I never thought that the old guy would swear and say, Don't worry, I'm a master of both foreign boxing and inner boxing. My muscles and bones are very strong and lively. To tell the truth, don't look at me thin, in fact, I'm not worse than your young afterlife. At 1:30, a big cake is baked on the buttocks and I guarantee that I will burn my mouth in a short time. If you don't believe it, go back and borrow a stove from the farmhouse. When Pei Xiang heard the words, he burst into laughter. Was it possible that the old cook when he was young was like this? Zhou Xian couldn't take it anymore, so she stood up immediately, clenched her fist in one hand and tapped her chest lightly. Come on, punch here. If I take a half step back, I will lose. If I don't move, you will hurry up and get out with this vixen as far as you can. Zhu Lian complained. How can there be such a question? Boxing, it is not in line with the rules of the rivers and lakes. Zhou Xian twitched the corners of his mouth. Then you stand still and let me punch you? Zhu Lian said solemnly. Then let me do it. Just as Zhou Xian was about to speak, there was a flower in front of her eyes and a punch. The man fainted on the spot and slumped to the ground. Pei Xiang rolled his eyes at Zhu Lian. You are a great master at the top of the mountain. Is it fun to play with a warrior of the 7 realms like this? Zhu Lian squatted beside Zhou Xian, who was almost foaming at the mouth. Pei Xiang asked with a smile, How do you feel? Zhu Lian replied, Simple and honest. Pei Xiang is speechless. You can just say that he is stupid. Zhu Lian smiled and said, This kid is not serious about killing and even has a soft temper. Only when he is forced to jump over the wall he will fight for his life, and he will have to add some murderous aura in the future, so he needs a good knife, and it is also a knife practice. Good materials. Chao's swordsmanship is very suitable for him. After a while, Zhou Qian opened her eyes in a daze as if she had been slapped. She was awakened by a slap. She was still a little dizzy, her vision was blurred and she could vaguely see the old man's face. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Are you awake? Just as Zhou Qian was about to take a sip of pure infuriating energy, the old man squatting beside him put his fingers together and tapped several acupuncture points one after another, but Zhou Qian couldn't move for a moment. Zhou Qian's eyes widened, blood splattered. This was a sign that he wanted to reverse his true qi, but the result was still in vain. The old man wrapped his arms around his sleeves and joked, You're still young and your experience in rivers and lakes is still a little shallow. Pei Xiang turned his head and looked at one place, smiling playfully. Came for a ride. The young woman was valiant, with a saber on her back, and angrily scolded, What are you going to do to Brother Zhou? She tucked one hand into her sleeve and twisted her fingers around a fairy talisman that she bought with a lot of money. Zhu Lian turned his head and smiled and said, I am a bad old man. What can I do to you, Brother Zhou? As for the lady beside me, what is she doing? What is she? Pei Xiang said charmingly. What a nonsense, what a lady, you are still the eldest daughter of Huanghua in the boudoir. The young woman said angrily, shameless fox. The thin old man and the beautiful woman were not serious people at first glance. Zhou Xian stood up and said with a smile, little girl, don't waste the talisman in your sleeve, the price is definitely not cheap, it's better to keep it well, I believe it will only become more and more valuable in the future, and it can also be used as one that can subdue demons. The heirloom of the demon. If I guessed correctly, your surname is Song Girl, and your ancestral home is the old Duanzhou of the previous dynasty? The woman frowned. Duanzhou, it was a statement from the previous dynasty. And she did come from here and has been in a hairpin for generations, so after changing to the northern Jin kingdom, although the family went downhill, it was still a high gate of the county. Zhou Xian squinted and smiled, it's really a bit similar. I vaguely remember that there was once a strange woman in the Song family who was a famous inkstone maker. He is very serious about cutting inkstones, and it is often a few years old to make an inkstone, and some of them have cut 100 streams all over Duanzhou. The appearance of the woman has long been forgotten. After all, she has only seen it once from a distance. The inkstone is carved under the lamp. The woman's expression is focused and quite moving. For Zhou Xian, whether a woman can be called national beauty is never about her appearance, face and figure, but her demeanor. This time when he revisited his old hometown, Zhou Xian had a lot of thoughts about Seabase. The old man returns to his hometown, which is probably the case, thinking about it one step at a time. Hometown and beauties are both fascinating. Only one thing is not as good as wine. As time goes by, memory is blurred. It is like adding water to wine. Zhou Xian waved his sleeves. Zhou Xian seemed to have been removed from a body talisman. The man simply didn't get up, and he didn't have the slightest desire to win. Otherwise, even if he stood still, the two martial arts masters of the northern Jin kingdom would definitely not be able to knock him out on the spot with a single punch. Moreover, Zhou Xian also used this action to remind the blind woman who liked her that she would admit defeat, let alone act impulsive. Zhou Xian said, this Jianghu senior calls himself Zhou Lian. The young woman was stunned for a while and then quickly sneered, there is no excuse for pretending to be a ghost. Zhou Lian was beaten to death by Ding Ying long ago. What's more, this old man is so shameless he doesn't even look in the mirror to see his virtuous appearance, has the face to say that he is Zhou Lian. Taking 10,000 steps back, if the old thief was really Zhou Lian, that talisman would come in handy. There are elders in the family. She has never been married in her life and she is lonely and old, leaving only one of her beloved inkstones to be buried with a portrait of a certain person engraved on her back. Her eyebrows and eyes are vivid and lifelike. Next to the portrait is an inscription like an inscription inscribed on the heart. I had known it so stifled people's hearts, and it would be impossible to see each other when we met. The young woman smiled suddenly and asked tentatively, this senior, are you really Zhou Lian? After all, today's world is weird, gods, monsters and ghosts are emerging in an endless stream, and there are many mountains and rivers and heroic spirits now. Presumably that Zhu's resurrection from the dead is not completely impossible. Zhou Lian said decisively, how is it possible? Of course not. I have an undeniable feud with that old killer. If the dog is revived and I see it again, I will definitely let him fly. His appearance is old and his words are vulgar, especially his eyes are squinting at himself. This allows the young woman to be sure that it is definitely not Zhou Lian. Indeed, how is it possible that Zhou Lian cares so much about the appearance of women in the world? Not to mention that even if Zhou Lian never died at the hands of Ding Ying, it was just a rumor on the rivers and lakes. So even if this person has lived in the world for a long time, and has a long life like that of Eugenie, far surpassing the worldly master of martial arts, when Zhou Lian is old and full of gray hair, but no matter how old the old man is, he will still be the one who taught countless beauties to sigh with emotion. Between heaven and earth there is Zhou Lian. Julian. I don't know which sad person said about the past rivers and lakes. Of the 10 women, 9 hated Zhou Lian and 1 was because they had never seen him. It is rumored that there are 2 female ghosts who are highly skilled and like to roam the world, plus a number of goddesses who have made gold statues in temples and rivers and waters, and are still thinking about someone for a long time from birth to death, and then from death to death. Life they have never let go of the same person. This young woman surnamed Song just thought it was unbelievable. She couldn't imagine how there could be such an infatuated silly woman. Isn't she just a man as for? After that, the two women continued to ride horses. Zhou Lian led the horse slowly and Zhou Xian also walked. The old man said that he was looking for a place to drink and talk about business at the wine table. Zhou Xian hesitated for a long time but couldn't help but ask, "Old senior, Ming people don't speak secretly, are you really not Zhou Lian?" Zhou Lian raised his hand, patted his cheek and said with a smile, "What do you think?" Zhou Xian said sullenly, "Why did the senior call himself Zhou Lian just now?" Zhou Lian said, "To tell the truth, when I was young I was also a handsome guy who was overstepped by a beggar. A pretty girl from 10 miles and 8 villages, no matter if she was married or married, she was very fond of her. I guess the old dog thief will be ashamed when he sees me." Pei Xiang quipped, "Yo, what your husband said is interesting. Look in the mirror, hurry up and look in the mirror." At the same time he did not forget to take advantage of Zhou Lian. The young woman surnamed Song glanced at Pei Xiang, who made herself ashamed, and then at Zhou Lian, speechless for a moment. Songleguo Lake Mountain School. The host and the guest are in the pavilion. Qin Pingon said, "To take a more extreme example, when a small group of qi practitioners can attack a city and pull out a stronghold by themselves, and destroy a city in an instant with a gesture, do you think such a thing is reasonable for a world?" Gao Jun said, "The lonely yang does not grow and the lonely yin does not last long. There is always a mutual complement and victory over each other. For example, when I visited the Immortals from afar, I saw a lot of bizarre visions. The gods of the 5 mountains and the immortals in the mountains will be jealous of each other and restrain each other. Take a step back and say they can't restrain me, and if there is Qin Jianxian, who is an extraordinary person from Shangua and Xianxia, can he put things right?" Qin Pingon asked back, "Who will restrain us? Are you self-disciplined with the benevolence, righteousness and morality in your heart?" Gao Jun seemed to be answering the wrong question, but also answered it with a rhetorical question. "Qin Jianxian, have you ever met the master behind this blessed land?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "I have seen. The other party is a great monk of the 14th realm, a Taoist priest with the Taoist name Bixiao Cave Lord, so the whole blessed land actually has a nickname called Guan Taoist Temple. The immortals are above the Puru, and the immortals are ascending, and the one higher than the soaring is the 14th realm. This is an extremely rare thing. Generally, the sects that sit in the heaven and the blessed land are at most ascension cultivators. These people behind the scenes each has his own needs. Some are for the purpose of obtaining the treasures of heaven and earth, and the cultivator embryos that are included in the genealogy are carefully selected. Some are just for a spectacle, and some immortal mansions are poorly managed, but are dragged down by the blessed land, putting the cart before the horse, leading to the exhaustion of the treasury in a slump, and finally can only sell the blessed land and sell it to others." Gao Jun nodded, took a deep breath and said straight to the point, "Qin Jianxian, you can tell the purpose of this visit to the Hushan faction. It is impossible for the other party to reveal these secrets that are hard to buy for themselves for no reason. Furthermore, this Qin Pingon has no incense at all with the Hushan faction, and it's a bit harsh to say because of the relationship between the ancestors of you, the two sides still have an old account to settle." Gao Jun's thoughts are quite human, but they are only half right. Luopao Mountain, or Qin Pingon, treats the entire Lotus Root Blessed Land as well as the Hushan School, which is part of the Blessed Land, and it is not too utilitarian when it comes to Gao Jun. It cannot be said that there is no selfishness at all, but compared to the general Blessed Land, the sect power is indeed a very conscientious landlord, or owner, and it is more about giving rather than taking. Qin Pingon said, "Before answering the question of Sect Master Gao, we must first inform you of 3 things. First, the 14th realm cultivator has given up the blessed land. Second, the Lotus Flower Blessed Land has now been renamed Lotus Root Blessed Land, which is no longer in Tong Tong. Yezhou but Beipingzu in the north is placed on the top of my house called Luapa Mountain. Third, the former Lotus Flower Blessed Land, according to the division of the vast world, belongs to the inferior Blessed Land, plus Bixiao Cave. Because of the Lord's view of Taoism, there are no Qi practitioners, and after I obtained this blessed land, I was promoted to a high-ranking rank. Among them, the treasures of heaven and earth that were born in accordance with the weather have all been recorded in the book by Zhongli Longevity. According to the established strategy, Luopao Mountain will not be harvested, like the autumn harvest of fields, and most of them will be left to the blessed land. It circulates on its own. Different cultivation opportunities and treasures on the mountain will be spent by different families, who can take it in the bag depending on their strength and fortune. Only a small part of Luapa Mountain will be selected, and the ins and outs of each account will be clear to Jisifeng. For the record, if the mountain owner Qin Pingon looked at the records, he felt that it was inappropriate, and that something was from an incorrect origin, and he still needed to quietly return the blessed land. In addition to the abundance of spiritual energy in heaven and earth, feudist martial arts are also quite good. This is of course thanks to Qin Pingan's great disciple, Pei Qian's strongest breakthrough. Gao Jun couldn't accept the truth for a moment. Qin Zhenxian beside him was the owner of the whole blessed land. Lost mountain? Lost and lost? Could it be that the immortal mansions in the world are named so arbitrarily? In the Battle of 10 People that year, the people who finally won the top of the city have their own good fortune. Including the knife sharpener Lu Zong, some people choose to leave the blessed land and some people choose to stay in exchange for a chance in the immortal family. For example, the master of the state of Nanyuan, Zhong, he got a picture of the true shape of the 5 sacred mountains. Your ancestor Yu is very concerned about this thing and regards it as a must, but Zhong Qiu acts carefully and there is Lu Tai from it. As a stumbling block, it is unreasonably placed on the chessboard, and this immortal picture has not become the treasure of your Hushan school. When Gao Jun heard this, he looked embarrassed. The 5 sacred mountains were refined and merged with the heaven and the earth, so the newest 5 sacred mountains in the blessed land are not within the scope of the 4 kingdoms monarchs. Later, all kinds of heaven and earth visions, and the spiritual energy climbed higher and higher, which is the external manifestation of the promotion of the blessed land's rank. And the opportunities for life are springing up like bamboo shoots after a rain. In addition to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which is the foundation of Qi practitioners, martial arts are also skyrocketing. Therefore, today's martial arts in the world have entered the 3rd realm of Qi, refining from the 3rd realm of body refining, and their physical toughness is also different. Some potential changes, such as fish in the water in the shallow water of the pond in the past, replaced by a large lake, pure martial arts practice martial arts and boxing, is a trace of the origin similar to the carp leaping over the dragon gate. Speaking of this, Qin Pingan pointed to the lake and then pointed to the stream. Upstream, the martial arts gradually became richer like this stream. There was a sound when the water hit rocks, and the effect of quenching the body became more and more obvious. There are very few common people. Can be perceived that the creation of heaven and earth is only silent. Gao Jun asked one of the most crucial questions. Qin Xianxian's return to the blessed land this time is to attract me. Let me change the family and the family tree and join you. Wupa Mountain? Qin Pingan said bluntly. If sect leader Gao is willing to serve as a named worshipper or guest minister, it would be best to do so. But the tough melons are not sweet. Sect leader Gao may not be willing to rely on others. And with sect leader Gao's current dual status, it may not be suitable to join us in the family tree of Luopao Mountain. In fact, I came to the blessed land this time. In fact, I have a preliminary idea that I have to take a step-by-step look at the good and the bad. However, I have to have a chat with Gao's sect. No, if you take the wrong first step in deciding the direction, the consequences will be unimaginable, and if you do too many mistakes, it will not be a good thing for Luopao Mountain and Lotus Root Blessed Land. Eugenie was able to enter the nascent soul realm in a middle-rank Lotus Flower Blessed Land, and then soared away from this world. But this does not mean that after the Lotus Root Blessed Land ranks first, the more heavenly Gao Jun will definitely be able to. Followed by, according to the calculation on paper, you can take advantage of the situation to go up a step, break the bottleneck of heaven and become a jade. The root of it is that there is a big gap between the cultivating qualifications of the two sides. Gao Jun just got the first move and then was favored by this Feng Tiandao. However, going up the mountain to cultivate the Tao in addition to innate aptitude and root, is also very important. Therefore, whether Gao Jun can become the first Jade Pure Realm monk in the history of Lotus Root Blessed Land in the future can only be said to be between 5 and 5. At least after this meeting, Qin Pingan was more optimistic about Gao Jun, who had a calm temperament and almost no hostility. The only problem is that Gao Jun does not have a certain lofty ambition that he believes must be achieved. Can also be said that it is some kind of ambition that is different from ordinary people, or even different from the whole world of monks. This may be Gao Jun and Picture Scroll 4 people, the first people in the world in history. The biggest difference lies. It's just that this kind of thinking can't be helped by others. It can only be a coincidence of Gao Jun's own way of repairing the road. Gao Jun was silent for a long time, forcibly pressed the Dao heart ups and downs and asked, Qin Xianxian's Luapa Mountain, how many Jindan cultivators like me are there? If you don't count the next sect, Let's not talk about the famous guest of Luopao Mountain. There is only one Jindan Earth Immortal. Qin Pingon smiled and said, there are more Yuanian cultivators and there are more upper 5 realms. Among them there are 3 in Ascension Realm, named and anonymous, and Luopao Mountain temporarily has 3. Such frankness suddenly made Gao Jun, who was not good at words, even more silent. A treasure bottle continent and a desolate mountain are still like this, so in a vast world, isn't the Ascension Realm everywhere? Qin Pingon hesitated for a while. The mountain owner who always goes out and walks the rivers and lakes first falls into the 3 realms to respect. It is rare for Wang Pu to sell melons and boast. Don't get me wrong, the head of Gao, there are not many mountains like Luopa Mountain. Gao Jun smiled bitterly and changed the subject. I don't know what Qin Xianxian's so-called idea is. Qin Pingon said, I intend to conclude a contract. In addition to Sect Master Gao and Wei Liang of Nanyuan Kingdom, there are also the gods of the 5 mountains, several gods of Jiangshui, the monarchs of the 4 kingdoms plus Zhou Xian, and a few warriors of the 6 realms. It is equivalent to a cultivator, a pure warrior, of mountains and rivers, an emperor under the mountain, and we have entered into a relatively loose and rough contract together with us. Is used to restrain the behavior of the monks and martial arts masters on the mountain. The original intention is to clarify some of our real thoughts with you and your forces. Gao Jun was suspicious and said doubtfully, Qin Jianxian, you have both strength and confidence in Luopa Mountain. You can improve the rank of the blessed land and it is easy to take life and death. Why do you need to do this and restrain yourself? Qin Pingon smiled and said, Sect Master Gao, as the only golden elixir in the blessed land for the time being, is not a life and death to the Hushan faction. So what is the result? Why don't you have the slightest bit of rules? Just relying on Gao Jun's own selfishness and personal thoughts, he can maintain the whole Hushan sent 16 Qi practitioners and hundreds of lives and humiliations? Gao Jun was suddenly horrified. When did the Hushan faction have 16 Qi trainers? Why not 14? But the next sentence made Gao Jun feel the chill of Qin Jianxian for the first time. At the same time, make it clear earlier so that someone will not be punished in the future by complaining about not being taught. Gao Jun looked solemn and asked in a deep voice, if I insist on not participating in this matter, what will happen? Qin Pingon smiled and said, you can rest assured that the Gao sect and the Hushan faction will not be the same. In the future, as long as the well water does not violate the river water, you and I can continue to live in peace. After walking out of the pavilion, Gao Jun said that the Patriarch's Hall should respect the incense before making a decision whether she should be one of the initiators of the contract. Qin Pingon was waiting at the pavilion for her to return with the incense. He turned his head to look at the woman's back and said with a smile, Gao Jun has no Gao Jun in his heart. Can he still hope that there is a Gao Jun in the eyes of the Hushan school? Gao Jun paused in footsteps, did not turn his head to speak and continued to move forward. Except for the pavilion on the mountainside and the Patriarch's Hall on the top of the mountain, there are no redundant buildings on the hill. Gao Jun stepped into the silent and uninhabited Patriarch's Hall. An old man was in charge of the lights in the hall. The candles were like rafter candles, which made the originally dimly lit hall look extremely bright. In addition, wait until Gao Jun stepped into the hall before closing the door. There will be a vision, the sword energy and thunder and lightning fill the room, and the dragon cloud pattern surrounds the beams and columns. A crystal-clear snow-bright long sword swooped and swirled slowly around Gao Jun, like a bird in the shape of a man, very intimate. Gao Jun gently pushed aside the long sword, paid 3 sticks of incense, put it into the brass incense burner above the god's case, and then knelt on the futon to kowtow to the hanging statue of the Patriarch. After she got up, she closed her eyes and rested. Opening his eyes and looking at the hanging statue of the Patriarch, Gao Jun made a decision in his heart. In fact, there was a lot of controversy in the Hushan school about the hanging statue of Yuzu in the Patriarch's Hall. Just because of what kind of appearance Yuzushi above the portrait should have, there are different opinions and each has an opinion. Some say that it is a fairy-like old appearance which is more majestic, and some say that it is a young appearance which is both elegant and outdated. And also said that the child Eugene's appearance after drawing Dao is the most immortal. At that time, Gao Jun was upset because of the quarrel. The key was the 3 different opinions, behind which represented the 3 hilltops of the Hushan sect. Therefore, in the past few years when Gao Jun has governed the Hushan faction, whenever she encounters difficult things, she will always ask herself the same question: what would she do if the ancestor Yu was present? Qin Pingon sat in the pavilion watching several people fishing with rods by the lake, whispering, occasionally raising his head to glance in the direction of the hill, mostly guessing his identity and his relationship with sect leader Gao. Walking slowly, Gao Jun returned to Songlai Pavilion. After she was seated, she said, "The last question: how do Qin Jianxian and Luo Peishan view this world like a family yard?" Gao Jun's implication, of course, is whether Luo Pao Mountain will fish for the sake of its own interests, which will be renamed the Lotus Root Blessed Land. Everyone goes out to watch flowers and there are many fishermen by the river. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "If the fisherman is a market portal, he will catch fish to feed his stomach. Naturally, if he catches a few fish, he will not finish eating and drying it, otherwise he will keep it in the water tank at home. If the family is more prosperous, there is a pond and fish are stocked in it. The thin rivers and streams are thick with their own heritage. This is like the situation of the Hushan school. In the future, they will compete with other countries to compete with other countries for those who are suitable for cultivation. Xianxia Taoist species. Stocking swimming fish in this lake is nothing more than feeding Xianxia magic and teaching the secrets of Taoism. But to me, since the whole world belongs to Luopao Mountain, where are the fish? What's the difference? As for whether I will thicken the sect and undermine the world, that's why I want to conclude a contract. The cultivator should be careful to drink poison to quench thirst, and the Xinfu Mountain Gate should worry about accumulating wages and instant success. It is not the way of longevity and long-term vision. There are high and low techniques, but some principles are not divided into big and small." Qin Pingon finally added, "I didn't come up with this metaphor, it was first proposed by a person named Lu Chen." If Gao Jun realized something, he said to himself, "At the root of the matter, things are divided into yang and yin, and there is a need for someone to guide the way for the heavens. The ancestor you once said for me that I was good and bad, maybe it was because my realm was not enough at that time, but the ancestor you did not say. It's too far-reaching, it just mentions people who practice, prove the Tao and live long, want to live with the heaven and the earth, and the purpose is reversed, so they have always been rejected by the heaven. My generation of cultivators who have attained the Tao and then feed back the heaven and the earth, repeating the cycle, can be called the ultimate practice." Qin Pingon nodded, and he was indeed able to become the #1 person in the world. It is not without roots and reasons that Gao Jun was attracted by the will of God. Gao Jun's realm at this time is in a precious situation that seems to be 6 gods without masters, absent-minded, but in fact in harmony with the Tao. Before Yu Zushi left the customs for the last time and was about to travel far away, Gao Jun once asked, "What does it mean to be a Taoist?" Yu Zhini used the sword to control the saber and flew away. The light of the sword shot up into the sky, cutting through the sea of clouds above Hushanpai in one line. Spreading out her palm again, Yu Zhini asked her to hold her breath and focus her eyes on it, only to see that the lines on her palm were like mountains, and the mist rose in the mountains, turning into a picture of a market thousands of miles away. Inch umbrella people and mountains are united, and the Tao refers to the Immortal Mountain, and the Immortal Mountain cuts Taishu. Billions of living beings, picturesque mountains and rivers, 1,000 miles of autumn in the palm of your hand. Qin Pingon didn't want to disturb Gao Jun's state of sitting and forgetting, and when she recovered she asked with a smile, "Headmaster Gao, did you come from a scholarly family?" Gao Jun didn't know why the other party asked this question, but he understood a little bit of self-deprecating expression, shook his head and smiled. "I'm not a good person, I went up the mountain to practice martial arts very early and I didn't read much. Although the Hushan school has a large collection of books, it ranks first in the 4 countries. But I don't like reading since I was a child, and the books I have read in my life, if I read them intensively and extensively, add up to a total of less than 100 books including boxing manuals." Compared to the sword Immortal in green shirt in front of him, Gao Jun only felt that the other party's cultivation, knowledge, mind, and bearing were worthy of the 2 titles of Master and Sword Immortal. A leaf knows autumn, it can be seen that the vast world is indeed both awe-inspiring and daunting. Could it be that Lu Tai's ridicule was not all lies? It's just that hearing is false, seeing is believing. If there is a chance you really want to leave the bottom of the well, go out and see the world at the top of the well. Then for some unknown reason, Gao Jun noticed that the other party's face was somewhat resentful, and after holding it for a long time he said, "Master Gao is savvy when reading books, it's rare, it's rare." Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and said, Xianxia just said that our Hushan faction has 16 Qi practitioners, but as far as I know, only 14 people seem to be practicing at present. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "It's okay to say it straight because these two Qi practitioners have no sinister intentions towards your Hushan sect. They just regard this place as an excellent dojo. They must also have the meaning of supporting the dragon so the sect master can continue to pretend he doesn't know as long as he knows what he knows. One of them is now beside the arm St. Qing Yuanshan. His real name is Huan Yin. They are foreigners from Tongyi's Hao who followed Lu Tai into the Blessed Land. I am not unfamiliar with them. I can recognize them at a glance because they have dealt with them before and they will remain anonymous here. It's such a boring move, sect leader Gao doesn't have to think about it. Words are both a bridge for people to communicate with each other, and there are many divergent paths in the world which also come from words. Back then in Fang Bao, the young Taoist priest Huang Shang, the most memorable thing for Qin Pingon was the copper coin sword 3 Tong Bao Judiezwen. Gao Jun's expression changed slightly, because Zhou Xian had left a treasure bag and told her that after conjuring pills in the future, if she could go further, she could accept 2 people as direct disciples. But Zhou Xian did not mention more details, and the names of the 2 happened to be Huang Shang and Huan Yin. But Gao Jun searched the archives of the Hushan school and found no records of the 2, so she mistakenly thought it was an immortal prophecy from the unpredictable prophet. Yuzushi never. I think the 2 sides have long been in the Hushan faction. As for the existence of the armed sage Qing Yuanshan, Gao Jun is very clear. When the ancestor Yu left Nanyuan, Qing Yuanshan went back to the Hushan faction, but this martial arts master has changed his name over the years, and now he is in the Hushan faction. As for the lantern and incense burner in the Zushi Hall in the mountain, as for what agreement Yuzushi reached with Qing Yuanshan, why Qing Yuanshan was willing to remain anonymous, Gao Jun never asked. Some things, as Qin Pingon said, are roughly in his mind. Gao Jun asked, the relationship between Lu Tai and Qin Jianxian? Qin Pingon said, meeting by chance is a good friend who has never met again for many years. Going down the mountain together, Qin Pingon asked, does sect leader Gao know of a warrior of the northern Jin dynasty named Zhou Xian? I've only heard of it but I haven't seen it yet. That Zhou Xian, a weak-looking, burly man, was always timid when I heard that he was talking to others. However, according to the secret intelligence of the Hushan faction, this person is a completely different face when he is aggressive. Gao Jun asked, Qin Jianxian, can I follow you to Luopa Mountain? Qin Pingon smiled and said, it's a matter of etiquette. But I have to go to the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom first. After 2 hours, Sect Master Gao can go to the heights of the Sea of Clouds in the Wind, and I will go to meet you. The capital of Nanyuan Kingdom has the purity of Xinxiang Temple and the noise of Zhuangyuan Lane. There was once a person who wanted to go to Beijing to take the exam, and sadly returned to his hometown. In the past, I followed Old Man Yao to the top of the highest mountain in my hometown and stayed at the top of the mountain at night. In the early morning, the young kiln workers climbed high and looked into the distance, and for the first time saw a spectacular sunrise scene. Later, I strayed into the lotus flower-blessed land, where the twilight was deep in the Xinxiang Temple, and I suddenly heard the sound of the bell and drum, which was melodious and ethereal. It was as if in an instant the heart was quiet. There is one method in the world which can solve all kinds of sorrows, settle the infinite mind and open the lotus of mind. When the 2 walked to the foot of the mountain, Qin Pingon said goodbye, and his figure turned into a sword light, which was fleeting. Gao Jun, who had seen many strange people, was still caught off guard, stunned and quickly relieved with a sword fairy demeanor. In the evening, the blue and white mountains are about to burn, dozens of splendid sword lights close together, and they appear on the top of the mountain in a blue shirt. When the sun sets and the moon rises in the dark room of heaven and earth, like a fairy unleashing a lamp, the moonlight is like water and the sky is white. Sort of Coming Chapter 992. On the tail of the first month, another snow fell in Chuzhou, but it was not big, with some rain. It is like a secluded beauty wearing fox fur and a green skirt, and she is like a high-ranking scholar in the snow who is familiar with Uryo. On this day, in the middle of the night in Lotus Root Blessed Land, in the twilight of the vast world, Jin Dan monk Gao Jun and Jin body state martial artist Zhou Xian visited Luopao Mountain, but they were arranged in different mansions, and the 2 sides have not seen each other yet. In the dead of night, Gao Jun didn't want to breathe here, absorb the spiritual energy in the mountains and didn't ask for it. After all, she was suspected of being a thief. Since she couldn't devote herself to cultivation, she went out alone and climbed the stairs. On the top of Jilin Peak, Gao Jun I saw a fellow man who was taking advantage of the moonlight to climb up the mountain to enjoy the scenery. He was sitting on the railing at the moment, holding a wine glass with a jade pot spring wine bottle with green glaze dripping beside him, spreading out a bag of sauce meat. Drink by yourself. Gao Jun could not recognize the other party, but the other party recognized the head of the Xian school at a glance. The young and strong man was quite surprised and asked, "Sect Master Gao, why are you here?" Gao Jun asked suspiciously, "Who are you?" Hearing the local accent is like drinking warm wine. The burly man said with a shy look, "My name is Zhou Xian, an unknown in the northern Jin kingdom. If sect leader Gao recognized me, it would be a strange thing. I have never been to the Xian school, but I have seen a portrait of Gao Jun in the study of a son of an aristocratic family in the northern Jin kingdom. Still look better in real." Gao Jun was stunned and slapped his head and said, "I have seen Master Zhong." Zhong Qian hurriedly put down the wine glass, clasped her fists and returned the salute. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Because the two sides were not acquainted, it was only the first time they met, and they were not chatty people, so they were silent for a while. In the midst of the mountains and the moonlight, the fellow villagers who meet in a foreign land have their own thoughts, and their minds are endless. Gao Jun followed Qin Pingon away from Lotus Root Blessed Land. It was the first time he arrived and set foot on Luopao Mountain for the first time. The real Luopao Mountain was very different from the Xianxia Immortal Mansion that she had imagined earlier. When she arrived at Jisa Peak, in addition to feeling the aura of heaven and earth that was far more abundant than the Xian school, she only said that the scenery was full of eyes, neither miraculous nor strange, as if it was similar to the Xian school. Zhong Qian was the first to break the silence. "I was brought here by a strange old man and a woman named Pei Xiang. Who brought sect leader Gao here?" Gao Jun said, "It is the master of this mountain, the sword fairy Qin Pingon." Zhong Qian laughed at herself. Sure enough, sect leader Gao has more face. The old man who claimed to have a different hatred from Zhou Lian, claimed to be the housekeeper of Luopao Mountain. As for the charming woman named Pei Xiang, she seemed to be a worshipper. Zhong Qian said, "I heard that there will be a discussion in the Patriarch's Hall at Zhouji Sifeng." Gao Jun nodded and said, "Qin Jianxian invited me to sit in on the discussion." She wanted to decline, but when she thought of her current status, she was not only the head of the Xian faction but she agreed. This time, Gao Jun took the initiative to leave the Blessed Land. The original intention was to learn more about the personnel of Tianhui. So if you want to understand Luopaitian and Heirantian faster and more intuitively, is there a more shortcut option than participating in a discussion in the Zhushitang? Zhong Qian smiled and said, "I will also participate because I promised Luopao Mountain to serve as a guest secretary." Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and asked, "Master Zhong is not planning to return to his hometown?" Zhong Qian nodded and said, "I won't go back. I'm different from sect Master Gao. The places where I drink wine are the same. As for people from my hometown and not my hometown, I have no idea since I was a child. I heard that there are hundreds of Xianxia wine brewing here. The price is a bit expensive and you have to use those kinds of money from the gods on the mountain. I haven't seen it for a while. I have become a famous guest and I will get a salary every month. Besides, I heard that there is a boxing to learn on the Luopa Mountain. For example, Chong Qiu, the national master of Nanyuan, is now from Luopa Mountain, and I plan to ask him about boxing techniques in the future." The shadow of the famous tree of people, the masters from all over the world who gathered in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom in the past, Ding Ying, the supreme leader of the demon sect, has an unpredictable temperament, who dares to get close. Eugenie of the Xian school, immortal and unattainable. As for sharpening the knife, people like Lu Zong and Tang Tie, although they each have the style of their masters, all have mixed reputations. Therefore, in the minds of the younger generation of Jianghu children, they are not as respected as the Master Chong, who is known as the Wen Sage Wu Zongshi. And close. In a courtyard on the mountainside, Pei Xiang was exercising his supernatural ability to view the mountains and rivers, carefully observing the words and deeds of the two outsiders on the top of the mountain. Zhou Lian was lying on the rattan chair with his hands folded on his stomach, his eyes closed, and he didn't stop Paixiang's unethical behavior. The content of the conversation between the two people on the top of the mountain is clear. Pei Xiang asked, "Yan Fong, do you think Gao Jun looks good?" Without outsiders, she still habitually called Zhu Lian Yanfeng, which was the pseudonym Zhu Lian used when he was secretly poking around in Qingfeng City. Zhu Lian smiled and said, "Each flower is in each eye." In the eyes of the disciples of the Hushan school, Gao Jun is naturally the most attractive woman in the world. If you can kiss Xianxia, you would be willing to die under the flower. Pei Xiang sneered and said, "She doesn't see where she is going, and her beauty is not comparable to Hongxia." Zhu Lian turned his head and glanced at Paixiang's palm. Seeing that Zhou Xian was drinking wine with sauced meat, he smiled. The taste of his hometown was all in his sense of taste. In fact, from Zhu Lian's point of view, Zhou Xian, who keeps saying that she doesn't care about her hometown, will definitely miss her a lot in the future. Dad, it is Gao Jun. One day she decides to leave Lotus Root Blessed Land. Pei Xiang asked, "In the future the 2 golds in the Blessed Land will only increase, right?" Zhu Lian nodded and said, "This is nonsense. It's really worth paying attention to. It's just that in the future there will be several Earth Immortal monks and Spirit Refining Realm warriors." The old cook rubbed his hands and sighed. The snow melts, the spring breeze thaws, and big fish and small fish burst into ice. Pei Xiang asked softly, "Yanfeng, this time back to my hometown." Zhu Lian smiled and said, "Apart from being a groom for you, what else can you think? The vast world, the heaven and the blessed land, are actually not bad, nothing more than the rich eat the poor and the officials eat the rich. The poor eat the earth and the immortals eat the ordinary. It turns out that when you eat and eat, they all become a handful of soil. If you wake up from a dream, if you don't wake up from a dream, you turn your head to be empty." Pei Xiang asked, "What do you think of Gao Jun and Zhou Qian's different choices?" Zhu Lian said lazily, "Birds do not know how good the mountains are, they wander around in the small courtyard." Pei Xiang thought for a while, then frowned and said, "Don't give a shit. What does it mean that Gao Jun is unwilling to leave the blessed land? Zaning is the head of a chicken and not the tail of a phoenix. Her vision is too small and she made the wrong choice? Or is it that Zhou Qian is in despair? The foot of the mountain is like walking into the courtyard from the mountains, from the great master who is expected to become the #1 in the world, and turns out to be a mediocre warrior who is not good enough to be on the side of the world." Zhu Lian opened his eyes and shook his head lightly. "As I said earlier, each flower enters its own eye. The same person's different choices, different people's same choices. 2 flowers bloom, each representing a branch." Pei Xiang rolled his eyes charmingly. "You are the most crooked." Zhu Lian laughed and said, "It's a pity that Yuan Ying doesn't read." Pei Xiang raised his brows. "The pictures of the Fox country have always sold very well. They used to be a source of wealth for Qingfeng City, second only to the beauty of Fulu, but now it's good, it's almost piled up in the Hu Country Secret Library. This is not can't get along with the money?" Zhu Lian rubbed his brows and sighed. "How dare you touch Luopa Mountain in this way of making money? Tomorrow's Ji Sifeng will discuss matters. If you have the ability, you can bring this up to the sun yourself. Anyway, I don't dare to beat him to death." Pei Xiang suggested, "Don't we have the next sect now? Chief Shou has a Cloud Cave Blessed Land on Tongye sect, and the Blessed Land has the Rouge List of Washington. It is sold to Chief Shou at a discounted price. This income, it can just be counted as my private house money. You help to contact the Cloud Cave Blessed Land, negotiate the price, help to sell, and then we will share the account later? Isn't it equal to an extra long-term income?" Zhu Lian didn't say whether it was feasible or not, but just asked. "In the Fox Kingdom, you have disciples and grandchildren and you are expected to form elixir?" Pei Xiang nodded. "So there are more and more places where money is needed. Although I saved some money in the past, it is not a problem that I spend more than I put into my account every year." Zhu Lian smiled and said, "To be honest, if you don't talk about the long term, if you want to make money quickly, you have to make a profit." The old cook clearly understood the meaning behind the words of the Lord of the Fox Country. He was whining around and complaining about his bitterness. Paixiang's mention of the resale of the palace pictures was just a rubbish. Relocated from Zus Qingfeng City to Lotus Root Blessed Land, Hu Kingdom is like a closed-door country, and it has cut off contact with the outside world, especially the Qi practitioners who regard Hu Kingdom as a place to visit. Charm, there is no way to make extra money in the past. Although Pei Xiang and a group of henchmen are sitting in the Fox Country, there will be no complaints for the time being. It will turn into an out-of-control flood burst. In addition, Fox Charm is no better than a cultivator or even a spirit of the mountains and wilds, who has long been accustomed to the feasting in the red dust, and closed the door all at once to practice in solitude. making the Fox country like a slightly larger dojo. Although Fox charm is for the preaching of Taoism, Luopao Mountain and Hugua have long agreed on paper that as long as the Fox clan practitioners hope to enter the cave, they can go out alone to travel to the four countries of the blessed land to travel the world and get involved in the love affairs of men and women. Pei Xiang said cautiously, "The Fox country has taken root in the blessed land, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has almost doubled. If it is converted into immortal money, in fact, Luopa Mountain has already treated the Fox country very favorably." Zhou Xian crossed his hands, tapped his thumbs and said with a smile, "Don't worry about this kind of internal affairs, otherwise it will be seen outside." Pei Xiang suddenly became nervous. Zhou Xian said slowly, "The Fox clan naturally likes to be lively, but Luopao Mountain is a pure place. This kind of contradiction cannot be reconciled for the time being, and it naturally involves the relationship between the Fox country and the blessed land. A cornucopia of money can be rolled in just by running it casually. It will never ask the Fox country to close its doors. After all, don't compete with anyone who is competing with money. Just allocate a piece of land to you in the blessed land with a radius of thousands of miles. As soon as the gate of the national government opens, it doesn't matter how you earn money, we Luobaishan just collect the bills from each of you Fox Chi trainers, just lie down and collect money. You are happy, we are also happy, why not for? That's why you have discussed this matter with me more than once. How can you find a compromise solution that will not interfere with the normal development of the four kingdoms of the blessed land, and at the same time allow all living beings in the Fox kingdom to live comfortably and not feel that life is going to be easy?" I laughed and said at the time that I had no worries about food and clothing, and my practice was faster, and I didn't have to be treated as a prostitute and a kiln by those chi practitioners who came to the door just to take off their pants. However, the young master said that it is more appropriate to say that it is more appropriate. The sudden change of life from noisy to deserted is also bitter. This is the same mentality as the old man who retired from the officialdom. There is no bitterness in the busy traffic. Because it was a private chat with no outsiders present, I was on the son's side, and every time I mentioned this, I didn't have any taboos in my words. I said that once I wanted to do everything well, it would be difficult and I would be in trouble everywhere. As long as you don't think about it too much, things will become simpler if you say it simply. For example, allowing Hugua to open the door earlier, Luopaishan will learn from the fact that the national teacher Tui you set up monuments in the mountains, throw some iron rules and regulations for you and deliberately stand on the sidelines. Individual a few years and 10 years later, Luopao Mountain will have another well-documented and law-based settlement after the fall. All living beings in the Fox country who violate the laws and regulations should be killed, they should be closed, and the words are ugly, just do this, fox skin. The source of the talisman is all there. Now what is the price of a fox fur talisman in Beipingzu? Isn't it more profitable than your Pei Xiang selling a few pictures? Young master said to wait. I want to wait for the people of the four countries in the blessed land to gradually get used to the fact that there are immortals, ghosts and ghosts walking around the world. You will appear again at that time, even if the number is larger, you will become accustomed to it, mortal master. Get used to the weird things of gods, and then from the dark and different way to the coexistence of people and ghosts, each has a prototype of going to the countryside. At the same time you are like a closed mountain. In 10 years I will open the door and go out in the future, and the cultivation level will be high. From the early days of 2, 3 or 3 groups, and then going out alone in the future, there will be fewer accidents during this period. In the final analysis, the sun treats all of your Fox clan as living people, otherwise you think that the plan I proposed, the sun really doesn't know that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, but maybe in the sun's view this disadvantage at every turn a few dozens of Fox lives can be saved with a short-term gain destined to be smaller. Wait and see 3 words. In short, the sun cares more about your Fox country than you, the master of the Fox country. Pei Xiang sighed quietly. The mountain master has a heart. Zhou Xian said indifferently, Sure's kindness should be changed from light to strong and from strong to light, but turned into hatred. The punishment should be changed from severe to lenient, first lenient and then severely complaining about its cruelty. So the next sect chose Tongyi's Hao, and Cui Dongshan served as the first suzerain, not Chao Qingqing. If the sun returns to Luopao Mountain to practice, I may be the happiest person. No one. Zhou Xian was silent for a moment, looked up at the night, smiled and said, the more we hope for this world and the more kindness we give, whether the world returns kindness or vice versa, the more we will care and we will more tired. If you think it doesn't matter, probably this is a kind of practice. Zhou Xian raised his palm, reached out to grab it and clenched his fist. There are only two kinds of strong people in the world. What have I gained from this world? Whether it is ambitious, awe-inspiring, well-mannered and famous in history, or swindling and viciously competing for wealth, fame and fortune, the difficulty is up to me. I am not embarrassed. Who dares happy? Zhou Xian raised his other hand and waved it out. What have I paid for this world? If you are poor, you will be alone and your reputation will not be revealed. If you read the article, you will benefit the world. If you want to make a great contribution to the world, you will ask for your own hardships and slowly turn to the poor. Walked on ice. Finally, Zhou Xian stared at a strange sentence. Young master, master, young master. Loans are like giving and debt collection is like collecting. The discussion in Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall was set at the current time. Today at the twilight time, the square is indeed a bit quieter than before, thanks to Cui Dongshan. There are only the mountain owner Qin Pingon, the great housekeeper Zhu Lian, the longevity master and the Chuanfu Wei Wenlong. Right protector Zhou Mili, Qin Wanshu, Qin Lingjun, Xiaomao Guizhujiu and Pei Xiang. There is also a Shanjun Weibo who is known to wear a pair of trousers with Luo Pashan. The uninvited Xiago and the white-haired boy under the pseudonym Kong Ho were also present, standing beside Guizhujiu who was yawning. In addition, the person who was not called to participate in the discussion today is the gatekeeper Xianwei. In fact, has the Taoist Xianwei always recorded the genealogy of Luopao Mountain? As for Zhou Xian, he is still practicing boxing in the bamboo building. There are also Zhao Luan, Xin Yuanji, Zhang Jiazhen, Nailan Yiyu, the direct disciple of Chongqing, Yao Xiaoyan, disciple of Kong Ho, Shi Rou, Zhou Junchen, Zhao Dengao and Tian Jura of Chao Tu Shop. Qin Pingon first introduced Gao Jun and Zhou Xian, and then introduced to them the identities of the people in Luopao Mountain. Gao Jun and Zhou Xian both looked a little nervous. After all, it was the first time they had seen the so-called ranked in the fairy class, in the books of the Blessed Land. The patriarch of Luopao Mountain is actually a woman with a long life, and I don't know if it is her name or Taoist title. The goddess in a snow-white robe and a gold earring, Beiyue Mountain Lord Weibo, said that he welcomed Gao Jun and Zhou Qian to Piyun Mountain as guests. The little girl in black with two sparse yellowish eyebrows and a cotton bag slung across her shoulders is the guardian of Luopao Mountain. The girl in the pink skirt with gentle eyebrows and two guests congratulated the two guests. The boy in Xing-yi who likes to drop his sleeves when walking, named Qin Lingjun with the Taoist name Jingqing, hesitated to speak, but finally nodded with a straight face without asking the other's realm. The young man with the yellow hat and blue shoes had a soft expression and a slight smile. According to Qin Shance's introduction, Xiaomo was a sword repairer, and beside him was a sable hat girl with red cheeks. A white-haired boy with a pamphlet in his arms, although he was a handyman disciple of the outer door, claimed to be the genealogy officer of Luopao Mountain, so he was able to attend the meeting today and record the proceedings. The last person to introduce was the girl with the inkstone hanging from her waist, named Guizhujiu, a direct disciple of Qin Pingon. Since then the auspicious time has come. Under the leadership of Qin Pingon, everyone filed into the Jiaisfeng Patriarch's Hall. Gao Jun keenly found that there seemed to be no order and everyone was very random. Walking at the end, the white-haired boy who was a handyman disciple followed Qin Pingon, and the girl with a very casual sable hat just stopped at the door, waved goodbye to Xiaomo, and said that he just waiting outside obediently, but Qin Pingon said that you can listen in today. Xiago immediately stretched out his hand to hold the mink hat and straighten the front of his clothes. Gao Jun only felt a sense of ceremony on this girl. The atmosphere is probably because of this Zegas low realm and low qualifications. However, there were still rules for the seating arrangement in the ancestral master hall, which made Gao Jun seem to have realized something. Qin Wanshu fetched the incense pot, and after Qin Pingon took the lead in offering the incense, they took their seats, because Gao Jun and Zhou Qian were outsiders for the time being, and there was no need to salute the incense with the three hanging statues. When Gao Jun found his position, it was near Weibo. On the opposite side was the Xiago who was discussing matters, sitting upright and solemn. Zhou Qian sat next to Zhu Lian and Pei Xiang. The little girl in black looked eagerly at Zhang Lu Changming. Her expression was gentle and she nodded with squinting eyes. Then Zhou Mili began to open the cotton bag to send out sunflower seeds. Qin Lingjun helped Nuan Shu to bring tea and water together, and took the initiative to hand Wei Bo a teacup. He smiled brightly and took a sip from Brother Wei, working hard. The backer is not Wei Shanjun and the master is at home, Brother Wei. The first thing is to make up for Guozujia's apprenticeship ceremony and genealogy record. According to Qin Pingan's intention, it was enough to drink a bowl of apprentice tea, but after Guozhujio handed over the apprentice tea, he knelt down and kowtowed without saying a word, making a loud bang. Yuan Shu and Zhou Mili have moved tables and chairs, and have prepared ink, paper and inkstone. Qin Pingan wrote the name of Guozhujio and his place of origin on the genealogy. The second thing is to announce that Zhou Xian will serve as the guest secretary of Luopa Mountain. This time, Zhang Lu Changming is sitting at the table and is responsible for writing the name. Next, Qin Pingan proposed that Kong Ho be the monk who compiles the chronology of Luopao Mountain, which means that according to the rules on the mountain, Kong Ho will automatically be included in the longevity line of the rule of law. So Qin Pingan added a sentence and asked Kong Ho if he was willing. The white-haired boy seemed to have been hit with a sap, with a face full of reluctance. If he agreed to this in a confused way, it would be equivalent to being a messenger under the hands of Chongqing. He walked out of the gate of the ancestors' hall. When he was a master, what face would he have to see Yao Xiaoyan as a disciple? Longevity squinted and smiled. Qin Pingan turned his head and asked with a smile, President Wei, what do you mean? Whether it is to follow the old customs on the mountain, or Luopao Mountain makes an exception for fellow Taoist Kong Ho, I have no opinion. Wei Wenlong was also full of helplessness. Ever since Master came to Luopao Mountain, Lord Yingguan respected him as Palace Master Wei every time he met. Qin Pingan looked at Zhang Lu's longevity and she smiled and said, Daoist fellow Kong Ho should be happy. It doesn't matter to me whether I become a monk in the line of Zhang Lu or not. The white-haired boy is full of belly slanders, and if he doesn't join the line of Palm Law, I'm happy but I'm also worried. Most people don't know even that Pei Qian once said that the person who Luopa Mountain can't provoke the most is this Zhang Lu who is smiling all year round. Since there are no additional ideas, Kong Ho doesn't need to join the line of Palm Law. Qin Pingan didn't continue to embarrass Kong Ho. Everyone sent a boxing book and it would not be too much to change the editor. The third thing is that Luopaishan is going to buy new hills around it. Longquan Jianzong has completely withdrawn from the boundary of the state, and several hilltops have been removed by the Shanjun Weibo who used his natal supernatural powers, leaving a huge lake that has not been named yet. Clouds and mists rose in the council hall, and a landscape painting of the mountains to the west appeared on the ground. Zhou Xian just felt that it was an eye-opener. How could he still play like this? Gao Jun's eyes lit up and he quickly thought about it. It seems that his own Hushan faction and the Songlai Kingdom's court, which already has many Qi trainers, can also copy this move? While eating melon seeds, Qin Lingjun stared at the Piyun Mountain and smirked to himself. I just didn't have enough money in my pocket, otherwise I would have bought Brother Weiss Mountain together. Wei Bo held a teacup and looked at the silly Uncle Qin with a smile. Qin Lingjun noticed Wei Shanjun's sight, and immediately stopped eating melon seeds. His eyes wandered and he stopped staring at Pai Yunshan. Wei Wenlong glanced at Lord Yingguan. Qin Pingan nodded lightly. Wei Wenlong got up and walked into the mist, introducing the historical origins, spiritual foundations and various treasures of mountain materials of nearly 60 hills one by one. Except for the very few special mountains in Longji Mountain that have absolutely no possibility of purchasing, each of them has a rough estimate. The purchase method is not complicated. One is that Luopaishan directly buys it with fairy money. As long as the other party is willing to sell it, the price can be negotiated. The second is to exchange things for land, and there is a gap between the psychological expectations of the other party. Luopaishan uses various heaven and earth treasures, spiritual tools and magic weapons to make up for the difference. The last one is to let the other party make an offer by himself, and Luo Pashan will weigh the pros and cons and consider whether to buy it as appropriate. The three methods, the only purpose, is that the sale is not benevolent and righteous, not forced. There is nothing that is bound to be won and must be in the pocket of Luopaishan. After that, Wei Wenlong began to report his wealth and family background. This is also the reason why the palace lord asked the hidden official with his heart. It involves secrets. After all, the Gaojun of the Hushan faction is an outsider and cannot be easily disclosed. Today, Luopaishan's source of income mainly comes from three business routes. The first fortune route of Luopeishan built by Qin Pingon is mainly located in Beiju Luzhou, Bone Beach Fima Zone, Chunlu Garden Kikfu Yunshang including the city. The route that covers the entire southeastern boundary of Beiju Luzhou is like an arc, plus a wave of immortal islands on the sea. Among them, the robes woven by Kaik Mansion are the most considerable and stable income. The Dali Court of Aquarius Island and the various mountain and water gods of Beiju Luzhou are the main purchasers. The second horizontal trade route, mainly along Jidu, includes Duckweed Sword Lake, Longgong Dongshan, and later added Duke Lingyuan Shenlin and Longting Ho Liyuan, as well as the Yunshao Palace of the Zhou department of the Dian dynasty. Add the third route with Sanjiang Waters in Hongzhou Town, Dong Shuijing Fan family in Old Longqing and Sunjiashu. In addition, there are various Xianxia ferry boats docking at Nujiashan Ferry, and the income of the two shops at the ferry, Baozhai and Kalongxiang, can be ignored for the time being. Neglect. Then there is a lotus root blessed land that ranks among the top-rank bottlenecks. Among them, there is also a fox country that used to be the most important source of wealth for the Su family in Qingfeng City. The treasures that Luopa Mountain picked from the lotus root blessed land came into being and took advantage of the trend. Not many. With Qingping Sword Sect as the next sect, according to the old practice of Howran world, Qingping Sword Sect needs to take at least 20 to 30% of the income and turn it over to Luopao Mountain on a regular basis. For example, in the Inkstone Mountain in the blessed land of Jiang's Cloud Cave, Qingping Sword Sect and Jiang's 55 to 50 division, Luopa Mountain and Qingping Sword Sect, although they are related to the upper and lower sects, still have to settle their accounts clearly. Without the financial road of the money, the Emperor Song he would not have been so sincere and invited Qin Pingon to serve as the great Li's national teacher. The level of realm, the size of fame, the amount of identity, the root of which lies in the word fulfillment. The depth of a country's national strength, iron cavalry, education, civil governance and martial arts, do not still fall on the word money. Zhou Xian was not particularly interested in these, but Gao Jun kept the names of the immortal mansions in his heart. Obviously they were discussing the purchase of Shantao, but Changming suddenly smiled and said, "Allow me to say a digression, Shanju, about the embezzlement of the 600 gold and copper coins in the account of the Quanfu. Can you take this opportunity to raise the issue? Is it on the agenda?" Qin Pingon smiled wryly. "It's very simple, that is, the gold and copper coins in the Quanfu treasury are useful to the mountain master." Changming continued, "If the mountain owner still feels the suspicion of being a fake public servant and feels sorry for it, then I will discuss it with everyone today. You might as well listen to everyone's thoughts. If everyone has no objection except for the mountain owner, then the owner of the mountain can only be a one-word hall, in order to overcome all opinions, and the next time the ancestors' hall will discuss the matter in detail." Previously on the Fengyuan ferry to Tongyi's Hao, Qin Pingon had just brought Xiaoma back to Howran from Xianshan, and took the initiative to mention this to Changming because of the refining of the flying sword Jing Zhongyue. He wanted to create it is not a problem to build a long river of time that runs in an orderly manner. According to Qin Pingan's estimation at that time, it is not a problem to build a long river of time that is beginning to take shape with the help of the gold and copper coins that Ning Yao donated to the colorful world. The problem lies in Qin Ping's sword refining, is a bottomless pit that is destined to be filled with gold and silver mountains, and the three kinds of immortal money are meaningless, only gold and copper coins. At that time Changmin persuaded Qin Pingon, but Qin Pingon said at that time that he was not polite to her, and returned to Xindu Mountain to discuss the matter in detail. As a result, when Qingping Sword Sect was completed, the first Patriarch Hall discussion, Qin Pingon was fundamentally I didn't mention this, and because it was in the next sect as the long-lived master of the upper sect, it was not appropriate to raise this issue in the next sect Patriarchal Hall, so she had to wait patiently. Qin Lingjun was a little surprised. The long-lived Daoist friend didn't even call his master a son? Why was it changed to the Mountain Lord? Why do you feel murderous? Zhu Lian immediately lowered his head and drank tea, hanging up high on the matter, and made up his mind not to go into the muddy water. Everyone says yes, everyone says no, no, I'm a housekeeper and cook and I'm soft-spoken, you can just think I don't exist. Wei Bo shook his robe, cocked Erlang's legs and nibbled on melon seeds. The words of the long-lived Daoist friend were very chewy, and they were more refreshing than drinking tea. Changming smiled and said, "Of course, according to the rules set by the mountain master himself in the early years, As long as the money and treasures are in the treasury, no matter who wants to call them, they need to pass the resolution of the council, and the mountain master cannot exception. Qin Lingzhen's face was full of thought and he asked in doubt, is there such a rule? Why don't I remember it? Xiao Imo smiled and said, I haven't heard of it anyway. Xiego quickly agreed, Xiao Imo is right. The book said a very reasonable truth, women must support their men when they are outside. Didn't she just suffer from a big loss of not knowing this before? Otherwise, now she and Xiao Imo don't say they have become a Taoist partner, they're a bunch of babies. Qin Pingon glared and said, Xiao Imo Xiego, when did you go up the mountain? I heard you are a fart. Xiao Imo didn't dare to argue with the young master, so he smiled and looked at Xiaomi, who immediately understood, and then had another brainstorm, coughed a few times. The new editor, do you remember this? The white-haired boy immediately pretended to take out the booklet from his sleeve. Let me check it out carefully. Everyone, wait a moment, the iron proof is like a mountain, black and white words are the least deceiving. Qin Pingon said angrily, it's all right, I didn't intend to be polite to Chongqing in this matter. I will use at least half of the 600 gold and copper coins in Quanfu. Changming immediately corrected, Shanu, how can you say that you are polite to me and I don't dare to take this responsibility? Wei Wenlong said with a smile, the 2 gold coins were directly and indirectly earned by the mountain owner, so I have no objection to the call. Zhu Lian nodded and said softly, no objection. Wei Bo helped to make a final decision, that's someone who is hypocritical. Gao Jun and Zhou Xian looked at each other. Are the cultivators of Luopa mountain genealogy so courageous? Does this count as Qin Pingon who besieged the lord of a mountain? Although they are all with Qin Shanju in their hearts, but every one of them speaks so freely? In fact, this is the reason why Gao Jun and Zhou Qian have not yet followed the customs of the countryside. Otherwise Chief Shou, Pei Qian, Tui Dongshan, Jing Dafeng, Mi Dai Jiangxian, Jialao Xianxian. If all these strong and powerful generals were present, that picture he. Xiego listened to Wei Bo's evaluation and immediately took a high look at this Beiwei mountain monarch. Good, excellent, responsible and strong, dare to tell the truth, he is a hero. Guizhujie was eager to try and asked, Master, do you need me to single out a group of them? I don't think it's a small problem and it's not a big problem. The sable-cap girl and the white-haired boy quietly glanced at each other and nodded. If Alliance leader Guo spoke, they had to follow. Qin Pingon rubbed his brows. Don't bring some of the atmosphere of the summer palace to Luopao mountain. He waved at Guizhujie, took a sip of tea and put down the teacup gently. That's it, I'll take it out today. 300 gold and copper coins and the remaining half the Quanfu is reserved for me. Changming said with a heartwarming smile. Young master, I have to forgive my sins. For today's matter, please trouble my son to say hello to Xiaoli. Please don't let Pei Qian listen. Qin Lingzhen's voice was very straightforward. Master, do you want me to join forces with Guizhujie to retreat from the enemy? But to be honest, the longevity and the others are indeed kind. Just count this way, Shanjun, the most excessive. If you don't stop me, I will. Are you going to start scolding him instead of brotherhood? Zhu Lian gathered his voice to form a line. Master, this trend cannot last long. If it goes on like this, everyone will rebel. What kind of etiquette? The long-lived Taoist friend is doing things today. It is not authentic. Especially Wei Shanjun, an outsider talking irresponsible, yin and yang strange, don't know who to learn from. It's too outrageous. Qin Ping placed Ruo deaf and let Palace Master Wei continue the previous issue. But in an instant Qin Pingon and Wei Bo, Xiego and Xiao Imo turned their heads to the west at almost the same time. There was a flying sword that came from the west to the east, and suddenly entered the boundary of Chuzhou, and was about to swept into the Jiasfeng sword room. Qin Pingon stretched out his hand and took the flying sword into his hands. After reading the secret letter from the Book of Rites Academy, he was both happy and relieved. The secret letter is an invitation letter. It comes from senior brother Mao Xiaodong, who is the secretary of the school. The first half of the content is an official document sent by senior brother Mao to Luopao Mountain in the name of the Book of Rites School, inviting Qin Pingon to listen to the debate of the 3 religions. In the second half, it is more like a family letter between brothers and sisters. The letter said that the candidates to participate in the debate of the 3 religions have already been decided and will not be changed. There are 9 Buddhist sons from Western Buddhist countries and the world is full of blue. Of the 9 Taoist species, 2 of them are rather strange. One is Zhang Fenghai, who should have been imprisoned in the Xianxia cave of Yuegong in Baiyujing town. But according to Baiyujing, Zhang Fenghai is not only a Taoist official in Yushu City now, even Bai Yujing's genealogical identity has not been retained. Then there is Zhou Li, the first sect of the Aquarius sect, the head of Xianxia sect, and Zhou Li. On the side of the Confucian temple, 9 people were also sent to participate in the debate. After seeing the names of 3 of them, Qin Pingon was very happy and relieved. Because the latter is the young mountain chief of Hengku Academy Yuan Yu. The 2 people in front were Li Shixing, a scholar, and Li Baoping, a gentleman of the Daoist Xianxia Academy. Mao Xiaodong also said that, according to the meaning of the rites, the Confucian temple allows you to bring 1 more person to listen to the debate on the 3 religions. At the end of the letter, Mao Xiaodong said that this invitation should not be taken too seriously. Since it is not to participate in the debate, it is just an audition. In fact, it is optional to go. Mao Xiaodong's words in the letter were euphemistic, but with obvious tendencies. Qin Pingon can understand Brother Mao's good intentions. In the debate of the 3 religions in history, the participants are extremely dangerous, and the observers, if they are not well trained, their realm is not enough, but they are too devoted. It is easy to immerse themselves in the situation and lead the Taoist mind. Is simply a kind of scattering in a sense. The reason why Qin Pingon was not too worried about Li Baoping, when her brother Li Shixing came to participate in the debate, was a Taoist protector in itself, and Li Baoping's academic skills. Qin Pingon experienced it personally during the discussion in the Confucian temple. Past. The most important thing, whether it is his husband or his senior brother Cui Yuha and Zuyo, has always been very confident in Xia Baoping. After all, she is a little girl in a red cotton jacket who could copy books and create a mountain of books when she was a child just to skip school. On the side of the Confucian temple, an old scholar was holding his hands, followed by a tall Shuigong Sai. The old scholar asked with a smile, "Xiaodong, what did you write in the letter?" Although Mao Xiaodong changed the context of Taoism, but on the side of the teacher he was always sincere, and he said the content of the letter word for word. The old Shuizai became more and more angry, his brows wrinkled. One couldn't hold back, and when he saw no one around he jumped up and slapped. "Why don't you go? Why don't you have confidence in the younger brother?" Mao Xiaodong had to explain, "Junior brother is the same as your husband. He is too eager to learn and he likes to dig into the bullseye. The 3 religions debate, each has its own small words and righteousness. I am worried that the younger brother will be too exhausting and not beautiful." The old Shuizai snorted, "That's fair, Xiaodong is still an old-fashioned way of doing things. It's your husband who blamed you, don't you feel wronged?" Mao Xiaodong said sincerely, "Mr. teaches well, even if the students can only learn a little bit, they will benefit for a lifetime. So what the students are wronged, it's better that the teacher is not wronged." The old scholar twitched his beard and smiled. This is where the senior brother is inferior to the junior brother. Obviously he is not slapping his beard, but he speaks like a flattery. Mao Xiaodong murmured, "Real grievances will only teach people whether they should cry or not." The old Shuizai stretched out his arms and patted Mao Xiaodong's shoulder lightly. In Luopa Mountain, Qin Pingon walked to the gate of the mountain and stood behind a bamboo chair. The janitor Xianwei was reading a book. Qin Pingon coughed, and the Taoist priest Xianwei was startled, and threw the book to the ground with lightning speed. "Brother Dafeng, I never thought you were such a person, and you have such a book." A rickety man appeared in the house out of thin air. Just when he saw this scene he shouted angrily, shouting that the old cook is doing something wrong, and even put this kind of book in someone else's house. Qin Pingon was full of surprise and asked with a smile, "What happened?" Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, "I'm homesick." End of this chapter. Sword of Coming Chapter 993. Qin Pingon smiled and picked up the book on the ground and patted off the dust. Coincidentally, Sun Yuanji walked down the mountain, and Zhu Lian and Wei Bo appeared on the side of the mountain gate archway with warm trees and millet grains. Qin Pingon immediately threw the book to Zheng Dafeng. Zheng Dafeng pushed the book with both hands and slapped the book to Daoist Xianwei. As if Xianwei received a hot potato, he hurriedly threw it to the old cook. Zhu Lian was confused at first. He only looked at the title of the book on the cover. It was a serious book, but he didn't need the old cook to read the contents, and he didn't need to look at it. Knowing something was wrong, with a calm expression, he stretched out his hand and pushed away the head that Chen Lingjun was leaning towards, and quietly took the book into his arms. A group of people sat around the table. Wan Shu was responsible for serving tea and water, millet grains distributed melon seeds, and an extra bag of dried small fish was given to Zheng Dafeng. Even Sun Yuanji made an exception to stop practicing boxing and sat side by side with the two little girls. In any case, Zheng Dafeng was the first gatekeeper of Luopao Mountain. Although his eyes were not correct, he never had any hair or feet. If this man returned from home for many years, she should stop and take a seat. Qin Lingjun and Zheng Dafeng sat on a bench, picked up Zheng Dafeng's hand and patted the back of his hand. Dafeng, brother misses you. This is really not a polite word. When Zheng Dafeng was the janitor, Qin Lingjun was very good every day. It was a fairy life. Daoist Xianwei is not as funny as brother Dafeng. Zhou Xian and Wei Bo were of course extremely happy about Zheng Dafeng's return to their hometown, but they didn't have any polite greetings with Zheng Dafeng. It was unnecessary for them to be close friends and fellows for many years. If you really want to think about it, the first hilltop of Luopa Mountain is actually the three of them, but they added a similar-smelling chief show. Pei Qian and the others have a secret line of bamboo building genealogy. In fact, they do not have Qin Lingjun's share, nor do they know what the ancestor of Jingqing in Yunzi's mind has been mixed up for so many years. Zheng Dafeng raised his head and glanced at Luopa Mountain. The man nodded lightly, quite contented. The green hills were blooming like embroidered cheeks, as if to be charming for my return. The man smiled again and looked at Sun Yuanji, who was sitting across the table. Seeing that Sister Tsin is not yet married, she is probably infatuated, waiting for brother Dafeng to come home? Sun Yuanji nodded sternly. Zheng Dafeng smiled knowingly, but Miss Tsin was still reserved, always pretending not to care on her side. Over the years, I have been running back and forth between the Feishing City wine shop and the Haidehan Palace. Whenever I drink and miss my hometown, I always think of Miss Tsin's boxing posture when she went up and down the mountain. How moving, can teach a loyal man who originally planned to stay like a jade all his life, but at a glance his heart has changed 5 or 6 times. Qin Pingon asked curiously, what happened? A pure martial artist who wants to learn the Ascension realm to train Qi warriors and travel far away to other worlds. After all, he is barehanded and cannot control the life object to clear the way, so he must be the ultimate martial artist. Especially wanting to wading in the long river of time without getting lost is indeed too harsh for a pure martial artist. In addition, there is another way to go, which is to obtain the exception approval of the Confucian Temple, such as Zhao Yao, the servant of the Dali Punishment Department. Also an anonymous disciple. It just so happened that the old scholar and Bai Yi were both in the beginning of Hongmeng in the colorful world. And Zheng Dafeng is obviously not in these 2 roads. The mountain man has his own plan. With a smile, Zheng Dafeng took out a rare item from his sleeve, which was in the shape of a jujube stone with long and short fingers, but it didn't look like an old thing on the mountain. Qin Pingon took it into his hand and weighed it a few times, but he didn't feel heavy and asked in confusion, is it a shuttle for weaving? Zheng Dafeng sold it for another time. Tisk Tisk smiled and said, what kind of eyesight is the mountain master, only to see that this thing is the thing of the machine? You pour some spiritual energy into it and try it. When Qin Pingon poured the spiritual energy into the shuttle like pouring water into the shuttle, the simple and humble things that did not show the mountains and the water would have a vision. I saw that in the fine wood grain of the shuttle, there were rainbow lights flickering like arrows flying by. If you hold your breath and concentrate, if you look closely for a long time, you can occasionally see a snow-white foal stepping on the rainbow light, like a bird fluttering on the branches. The sun and the moon are like shuttles, the time is like arrows, the white horses pass the gap and the bulls and donkeys walk on the bridge. Is it a token that can ignore the rules of the avenue and travel freely through the river of time? Zheng Dafeng left his hometown in his early years, and he had an agreement with old man Yang. There were arrangements for when and how to return to Houran Xianxia. Zheng Dafeng started selling melons and boasting about herself. She lightly slapped her palm on the table and acted as a storyteller, saying, in ancient times in the old Yuzhou in the north of the state, there were many thunderstorms during the day, and as time passed, it became a great swamp and the water contained borrowed money. The true meaning of thunder and lightning. Later there was an unknown person who gained Taoism and Sanxian, went boating on Leizhe, made a net and fished and accidentally picked up a shuttle and hung it on the fishing net. The thunderstorm came suddenly, the shuttle turned into a dragon and went away and the rainbow escaped and disappeared. According to legend, this object has a very strong origin. It used to be the Wulayuan in the first government, 2 courtyards and 3 divisions of the ancient Thunder Department. It was specially used to drive mountains, moving the lake, blowing the sea to reveal the waves, raising and lowering the yin and yang. Especially this thing is one of the important tokens to shock and kill the land flood and drought and the illegal dragon. Qin Pingon nodded when he heard the words. The ancient Shu was rainy day and night, and the water was connected to the sea, so the wine in the gourd scoop hanging from the waist of the Taoist Chunyang was brewed with the powerful water of the Danjiang River. In addition, the boundary of Yuzhou was often thundered during the day. Intimidate thousands of dragons. Jing Dafeng urged. Brother Jingqing, why don't you touch this kind of priceless thing? Because this thing was deliberately detained by Qin Pingon in the palm of his hand, so that it would not pour out. Otherwise, Qin Lingjun and Hongxia, who belonged to the water-loving dragons, just glanced at it, just like ordinary people looking up at the scorching sun for a long time. It will really irritate the eyes and the face is full of tears. Qin Lingjun was eager to try it, but he was careful to sail the ship of 10,000 years and he laughed and said, "Do you think I am a fool? With such a history it must be hot to tell you so mysteriously." Millet said, "The children in the town often play the game of flying shuttles. In the past, Pei Qian went to the school to take classes. She, the right guardian of the Dragon Lane, often took the left guardian to wait at the gate of the school, one on the left and one on the right as the door god, waiting for Pei Qian to finish school. On the way back to riding the Dragon Alley, I often see children from the market gathering in the streets, holding a long wooden stick and hitting one end of a short shuttle on the ground. Children with good eyesight and strong energy can win more than a dozen shuttles as bets. After all, the feather shuttlecock has to be pasted with a few copper coins. The short shuttle is made of the most common wood and is not worth much, so every family's children all have. Pei Qian had a lot of shuttles in those days, all of which were cut by the shopkeeper Shiro, and her playmate at that time was only a grain of millet, so they played, and whenever the shuttles went away they would ride the Dragon Lane to the left. The protector brought it back and occasionally Pei Qian would do something bad. Seizing the opportunity, he softly shouted, "Let's go," and slammed the wooden shuttle into the roadside toilet with precision. The mood and expression at that time can be imagined. So as long as there is Pei Qian, it really does not dare to succeed in refining. Jing Dafeng gave a thumbs up to the millet, in the words, "This is the origin of the second layer of this shuttle, and why it fell into my hands all the way as expected. The right protector has good eyesight. I haven't seen it for several years. See admiration." Millet Grain grinned, raised her hand and pressed it twice. "General knowledge, don't be surprised." Only on the side of Jing Dafeng and Lu Duoxiao, Xiaomi Meili always felt that she was extra smart. Qin Pingon returned the shuttle to Jing Dafeng. Jing Dafeng carefully put it into his sleeve, gathered his voice into a thread and whispered to Qin Pingon, "It's Li Huai, a little who was tired of playing when he was a child. In the early years, the little often came to play in the backyard of the pharmacy. The old man was afraid that Li Huai would feel bored, so he built some quirky objects including this shuttle. Li Huai never took it seriously. At that time he wore open crotch pants to shuttle in the backyard every day. Those imprints made on the shuttle are not all still there. Back then I had to help the master to sew up the window paper every time. Then come to the door empty-handed and let the master be stubborn for the entire shuttle." Of course the old man didn't say anything to Li Huai, and immediately went to the utility room to be a temporary carpenter, chopping wood and shaving wooden flowers for the little boy and building a new shuttle. "I just told me the apprentice to go and find things back. If you can't find them, you don't need to return them." After all, when it comes to Master and Li Huai, even if the people present are Luo Peixian's own family, Jing Dafeng shouldn't reveal the secret, being cynical, heartless but not brainless. What's more, aside from the accomplishments of boxing, if you want to say that the master and the apprentice are superior and inferior, Li Er is a fart. Can he compare with Jing Dafeng? Married a mother-in-law and often blocked the door and scolded him in those years, almost scolding the master and his old man to the point of smoldering. This woman who Jing Dafeng had to call his sister-in-law, she really dared to scold her. Back then, when senior brother Li Er lost his pharmacy job to earn a living, she was unhappy. His own man as a master is not respected for the old, not a thing, an old bachelor with a full stomach thinking about picking ashes all day long. Even the apprentice's daughter-in-law is thinking about it. Not often go to her yard to squat in the corner at night, just want get Li Er drunk and then insist on dragging her to drink with a virtuous family. Jing Dafeng said helplessly, "As a result, I almost squinted my eyes out and I searched the streets and alleys of the town, and I managed to find the shuttle. You can't imagine where I left it. What came out is a roadside latrine, and inside the pile of rice, Li Huai, this bastard, is really better at throwing things than hiding. Speaking of which, Xing Dafeng, who was full of grievances, almost didn't cry on the spot. He who respects his teacher the most, was almost forced to cut off his teacher-disciple status because of this little thing. After that, Qin Pingon talked about the recent situation of Luopao Mountain in general. Weibo got up and said goodbye, saying that he had made an appointment with sect leader Gao and wanted to take her on a tour of Piyun Mountain. Zheng Dafeng looked at the boy in Xingyi out of the corner of his eye, and Qin Lingjun immediately understood it. He secretly spoke in secret, and it was like slang in all corners of the world. He secretly raised a palm towards Zheng Dafeng. While twisting his wrist, he was drinking and punching. The gesture of a number, this is to inform the Dafeng brothers, to tell the high head of the Hushan faction, look at the front, the side and the back, and look at the three's appearance and style. It is more than words. Zheng Dafeng nodded lightly, quite surprised, but it is inevitable that the man has a little regret. Even if the total score of the three superimposed remains unchanged, it would be better if it was 5, 9 and 9. Since Zheng Dafeng knew what he had in mind, he had to remind him aloud. Jun Wei Shan, remember to say a few words of kindness to me. It's better to let the high head come to the brother's side in his spare time. Don't deliberately exaggerate the facts. Just tell her the truth. Just say that the owner is elegant and the house is clean. I'm going to dry the bedding now. Weibo smiled and agreed. After that, Nuanxi took the rice grains up the mountain and went busy. Zhou Lian went to cut trees and bamboos on the far side of Yunmu Peak, and built the mansion and mountain road by himself, leaving only Qin Lingjun to join in the fun. In fact, the most embarrassing one is the Daoist Xianwei. Zheng Dafeng of course has been fascinated for a long time, but as soon as the master comes, he, the borrower who occupies the magpie's nest, will definitely have to move the nest, and maybe he can't even keep the identity of the janitor who guarantees income during drought and flood. Going to the house together, Zheng Dafeng suddenly said, in Wuxia Tianxia, Tui Dongshan has found me and invited me to go to Xindu Mountain to resume my old business and continue to be a janitor. He said that Xianwei Daoist on Luopao Mountain, hard work and great responsibility, so I think this matter can be considered. Shanju is willing to let go, and when Fengyuan ferry returns from Beiju Luzhou, I will follow the ferry to Qingping Sword Sect to settle down. Tui Dongshan patted his chest with Zheng Dafeng and promised that as long as he got to Xindu Mountain he would teach him to know what the real Wushan Duojiao is and the beautiful Yen Ryu. Zheng Dafeng only asked one question. Are there any sects around Xindu Mountain like Clawfish Bearing Pearl Island and Beiju Luzhou Kaik Mansion? Tui Dongshan swore that as long as he promised to go to Xindu Mountain to be a janitor, he would change it for Zheng Dafeng. Qin Pingon rubbed his brows. This proud student who had dug into the colorful world, if he stood in front of him at this moment he would be able to beat a big white goose into a black puddle. Zheng Dafeng sighed. In this way, it will only make Miss Sen's feelings come to nothing. Qin Pingon said angrily, don't ruin a girl's reputation. Zheng Dafeng nodded and said yes and then kicked Qin Lingjun's buttocks with his sleeves flying. Is it a wine bag and rice bag? There is no jade pure realm yet. Qin Lingjun staggered and said angrily, what do you think of as a jade pure realm? If you want it, if you have it, you will have it. Zheng Dafeng sneered and said, how did you brag on the Nuanshu side? Isn't the little jade pure realm easy to come by? Qin Lingjun choked for a moment and asked tentatively, have you told me this about millet grains? Alas, what a competent ear-reporting god. Zheng Dafeng raised his foot again. I still use millet grains? Lao Tzu thought about it with his knees. Qin Lingjun was about to help Zheng Dafeng subconsciously, but when he saw brother Dafeng lift his feet and then retract his legs he walked like a flying in one go. The boy in Xingyi immediately smiled and smiled. Zheng Dafeng was also warmed up in his heart. He said before that he was homesick but he was sincere and true. The shopkeeper on behalf of the foreign wine table chatting and laughing again, but the new friend is not as good as the old friend after all. Daoist Xianwei is really a simple and honest person. It turned out that after taking this job as a janitor, Xianwei moved into the house and did not occupy the main house of Zheng Dafeng. This fake Taoist just lived in a side room. Hearing that there was wine in Xianwei's house, Zheng Dafeng put away the key of the main house and said that it would be better to sit at Xianwei Daoist's side and chat while drinking. Xianwei was a little embarrassed and said that the room was a little messy. This side room is not only the residence of Xianwei, but also a study room. The janitor is the most leisurely errand. Xianwei is diligent in reading and diligent, and it can be said that he can't put it down. In addition, he likes to write something. Waiting for the stationery and books to be miscellaneous, and Xianwei often read books like visiting relatives, changing books, flipping through and reviewing, and then putting them aside after reading them. Ancient umbrella. In addition, Xianwei was used to living a poor life and he was most nostalgic. He was reluctant to throw away those writing brushes. He asked Qin Lingjun to help him and bought a celadon-shaped urn from the small town shop, which was specially used for storage. Putting away the discarded brushes over the years, the old brushes gradually rise higher than the porcelain pots, which is quite a bit like a mountain of brushes. Qin Pingon, the mountain owner, was actually the first time to enter the house, so he was very surprised when he looked at the porcelain pot. Xianwei likes to read books, but anyone who is not blind knows it, but Qin Pingon really didn't expect Xianwei to use it. Lost so many brushes, just write what? It can't be the splendid novels of those talented and beautiful women. Are you still thinking about finding booksellers to print and sell books to make money in the future? Therefore I took a look around. In addition to a few bamboo dustpans in the corner of the house, there were a lot of books, compiled into volumes, and there were some scattered manuscripts on the table. Qin Pingon took out one of the manuscripts covered under the book. The words were ordinary, just Zhou Xian. As for the content, Qin Pingon was speechless. There were only a few words on the paper. If a sentence, "fallen hairpin is lying on the pillow of water essence," is taken from the neighbor's house in the book, it will be wonderful. Zheng Dafeng stretched his neck and glanced at the content on the paper, nodded lightly and then shook his head slightly. The man was like a Confucian sage who was in control of the world. All of a sudden, his expression was indifferent, and he began to point to the younger generation. If you comment again, Xianxia, for the double pillow, it is enough to make the spectators reverie, and at this time, this scene has a bit of the meaning of silence is better than sound. Xianwei said with a boxing palm, "Brother Dafeng is indeed a senior." Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, "The approval is added to the approval, and one more sentence, there are rouge spots on the double pillows." Qin Lingjun smirked. Xianwei thought about it for a while and then he got a correct answer. His eyes lit up, and Zheng Dafeng looked at each other and nodded. If it hadn't been for a long time in this house, Xianwei had opened his eyes and gained knowledge. Otherwise he would really not have understood what Zheng Dafeng was talking about. Qin Pingon picked up the book on the table as a paperweight, and planned to put the piece of paper back in its original position and repress it under the book, but said helplessly, "You can get it soon." I have regretted the previous thought. At that time at Jiasfeng Patriarch's Hall, after receiving a letter from Brother Mao's flying sword, Qin Pingon was still thinking about whether to invite Xianwei to participate in the debate. But when Qin Pingon glanced at the second piece of paper on the table, he immediately put the book and paper in his hand aside, and picked up the piece of paper full of teeny small letters. Zheng Dafeng snorted, "Why is Brother Xianwei so unprofessional?" Qin Pingon didn't raise his head, just carefully browsed the content on the paper and said with an angry smile, "You have to have a degree of nonsense, why don't you do your job properly?" Xianwei looked shy and wished he could dig a hole in the ground and burrow into it. His voice was like a mosquito. "It's not self-sufficient, it's ridiculous." On the side of Brother Dafeng, whom he has admired for a long time, Daoist Xianwei, who is sincerely convinced, always considers himself a junior. Zheng Dafeng picked up the rest of the paper on the table, flipped through it quickly, no longer had the previous smile on his face, nodded and said, "Brother Xianwei has read a lot of books, he has great ambitions, he plans to use the old track of the book Mountain of Huainanzi Mountain. This is to dislike the former's frugality and are ready to expand it? This is a big project. It should have been an order of the imperial court to let the entire Hanlin Academy and dozens of old scholars study, compile and summarize together. Brother Xianwei, I actually thought that with my own strength I could carry this heavy burden on my shoulders. It's okay, it's just right to be the janitor of our Luapa mountain." It turned out that this immortal Wei Daoist was planning to learn the way of the opposite masterpiece. He took the matter called Dashan as the general outline, and then divided them into categories, named after the 5 mountains, and picked their words as Xiaoshan, and then classified them as hills, ridges, mountains, feng, etc. In addition, I will prepare the contents of the original rhyme and store it under the other rhyme, and name it as Qianshan, and then classify the barnyard officials' wild history and trivial legends that do not enter the stream as water mountains hidden in the bottom of the mountain range, and then put the land, the wonderful things and words between the mountains under the sea are picked out separately, and they continue to be classified as the Chunjin Cave House and the Water Dragon Palace, which seem to concentrate spiritual energy and treasures. Xianwei said with shame, I was inspired by Brother Dafeng to dare to do such an act of shaking the tree. From the beginning I didn't think about what it must be. It is very likely that I will give up halfway. Jing Dafeng was stunned. How do you say it? Xianwei said a moment to wait, ran over to the dustpan in the corner, tore a page similar to the preface from a book, and handed it to Jing Dafeng. Xianwei explained with a smile. Brother Dafeng is not proficient in Buddhism. As for learning, those Buddhist scriptures are often filled with pages and full of comments. I have read it many times. Over time I have made a scribbled summary of Brother Dafeng's insightful summaries. After that I still have no idea. I have a rough idea of creating a mountain. Jing Dafeng didn't take it seriously at first, but after he saw the preface he silently handed it over to Qin Pingon. Qin Pingon took it over and looked at the text at the beginning, but although he seemed to have a normal expression he actually felt a little bit of an instant scalp tingling. The handwriting on the paper is in italics with a very monumental meaning, and first of all, it is a big talk that is clearly stated. Taoist Xianwei, who often lives in the deep mountains, is close to the grass and trees in the cold and heat, and has a feeling of climbing high and occasionally has experience. Since he is a layman of the Buddhist school, naturally he should not look at the Buddhist scriptures, the law and the meditation from the perspective of the door. I am only 1 year old in the human world. When the time is matched, the scriptures will make all things flourish, full of vitality, and the beginning of the year is the essence of the Tao, so it is spring, the laws are laid out brightly, the vegetation has become lush, summer. On the other hand, the atmosphere is awe-inspiring and the season is so fruitful, autumn is also. The view is clear and clear as if the snow is full of the world is one color and the winter is also. In Zen, the circle is completely smooth and harmonious. Even though the fortunes of the seasons turn around without words, the 4 seasons all follow the rules and regulations. Jing Dafeng rubbed his chin and said with a smile, My brother Xianwei and I are both the gatekeepers of Luopao Mountain. Those who come are chasing after the predecessors. Do I count as a successor? Qin Pingon held back for a long time, then said softly, I see people in a good way, as good as ever. Qin Lingjun glanced at the paper in the master's hand, but he didn't read it. After he put his hands together he pretended not to understand. Xianwei just acted as the mountain owner, joking with Brother Dafeng, and went to open the bag full of charcoal and added some white charcoal to the brazier, all of which were made by the old cook. Xianwei felt that a girl in a pink skirt was carrying such a large bag. Back at the house at the foot of the mountain, Zhu Lian smiled and said that it is not an example because Nuanshu likes to do these trivial things. If there is 1 or 2 more things he will just pick up a copper coin or 2 on the ground with the millet grains. It will only be happy, but if it is some habit, if you don't have to do the little things in your daily life, suddenly the warm tree will be lost. It's the same as if the millet loses money. Surrounding the brazier and lighting the charcoal, Wei Xian skillfully set up the iron net, and asked Qin Lingjun to go to the kitchen to get a bunch of rice dumplings, and a few people sat around the stove to warm the wine. Qin Pingon asked, Where is Ascension City? Jing Dafeng didn't speak and stared at Qin Pingon blankly with a strange expression. Qin Pingon doubtful. What's wrong? Jing Dafeng was only silent for a long time. Qin Pingon became more and more confused and couldn't help urging, If you have something to say, say it. It's really a problem and I can rush over immediately. Bringing Xiaomo is really not good, then bring Xiego. Anyway, the agreement between Xiego and Bai Zi and the Zhongtu Confucian Temple does not include the colorful world. Then Jing Dafeng said with a smile, Don't say it's Feishing City, now the whole colorful world is just like the situation just now. It's silent, stuffy, and no one has anything to say. It's all because of one person's words. She traveled to the vast world with her sword and then returned to the colorful world. It didn't take long for Ning Yao to hold a meeting in the Patriarch's hall. She finally spoke, concise and to the point, saying that she planned to go to a small retreat, which could be as short as 1.5 years, or as long as 2 or 3 years. Qin Pingon didn't say anything, he could only grin. Today the 5-level monks in the colorful world can be counted, the Fairyland monks at most one-handed, the Ascension level Ning Yao is the only one. Besides, Ning Yao practiced swordsmanship, and if Qin Pingon remembered correctly, the number of times he retreated before he went to the colorful world and entered the Jade Pure Realm was only once. He was in the Ning Mansion at the time and Ning Yao didn't actually spend that long. Her so-called retreat was more like a meditation. Therefore, Ning Yao's retreat is completely different from the retreat that any cultivator in the world must handle with care. Therefore, when Ning Yao coldly said that he was going to retreat, And it was still the kind of retreat that would take up to 1, 2 or 3 years. Feishing City. Xianxia was shocked. It was a normal thing. As for the colorful world outside Feishing City, what can you say when you hear this? Anyone who dares to provoke Feishing Xianxia during Ning Yao's retreat will be imaginable when she leaves. The last person who didn't believe in evil was the Taoist Shan Qing, and as a result, after a questioning about the sword, the close disciple of the Taoist ancestor went to retreat to recuperate. Zheng Dafeng said sourly, "Before retreating and practicing swords, Ning Yao found me specifically and told me not to talk about the colorful world, so that you won't be distracted." In fact, after these years of running in, the Ascension City has been operating in an orderly manner, each performing its own duties, and the young sword cultivators and the warriors who hide in the cold palace have also grown up one after another. Zheng Dafeng sighed. "I never thought that Luopao Mountain would have a sect so soon. It's right to choose Tongya continent for the next sect. In the Taiping years in the border areas of a country, how difficult it is to raise a vassal king, you can clearly understand after reading a few historical books. The same is true. 5-realm cultivators, especially sects, are also quite difficult things. On the Aquarius continent, especially in the central and northern regions that have not been disturbed by the war, there are so many sites for the spiritual energy of the heavens and the earth and suitable sites for the immortal Kaifeng. Maybe if you snort while sleeping you will make a noise on the mountain next door. It is difficult for the neighbors to live in harmony for a long time. If the blacksmith Wan doesn't move the Longquan sword sect, I can be sure that within 100 years he and Luopa Mountain will be anxious for each other. There are hundreds of different people and there will always be conflicts between disciples in the future. Tongyi's Hao is just the opposite. There are few monks and more porridge and there are many land without owners. That is, Tongyi's Hao and Biezhou are far away and there are Aquarius Island and Pazhuo Island, which are in urgent need of reconstruction of the Confucian Temple as a buffer. Otherwise, it will be replaced by Luxiazu or Snowy Island. Even if Qingping Sword Sect is successfully established, it will not have the momentum it is today. The key is to be able to cross the river with one. The identity of the dragon draws allies from all sides, and completely dominates and controls the excavation of a brand new dungeon. Qin Lingjun said with a hilarious smile, "Brother Dafeng, I won't even recognize you if you chat in such a serious manner." Zheng Dafeng picked up the iron pliers and fiddled with the charcoal fire and asked, "Could it be that the women here today don't like the witty and incomparably talented gentlemen, and instead like the honest, silent and honest people?" Qin Lingjun said, "It is not pleasing to be ugly, and it will be the same in another 10,000 years." Ignoring these two giggles, Qin Pingon reached out and flipped the zongzi whose leaves were slightly burnt and fragrant, rubbed his fingertips and asked, "You really made up your mind to go to Qingping Sword Sect?" Zheng Dafeng nodded and said with a smile, "The prodigal son is a coquettish old man. He has never been restless and guarded himself. He can only be a life wandering around." Qin Pingon was speechless. Xianwei said, "Brother Dafeng, if you go to the next sect because of me you don't have to. I will just move to the mountain or I can move to Kelongxiang. If you don't think it's troublesome and it's annoying then I'll take care of you. Keep your face here." Zheng Dafeng smiled and waved his hand, interrupting Daoist Xianwei's words, and picked up a baked golden zongzi. To say that it has nothing to do with Xianwei's brother is a lie, but to be honest it does matter, but it doesn't matter much. Once I stay here I can't help much. The warriors of Luopa Mountain are either the mountain owner or the old cook, or Wei Haiyang and Lu Baixiang seem to be separated and independent. Do you need me to teach boxing? I want to teach but they are not willing to learn. They taught boxing for many years in Ascension City to hide in the Hanqing Palace, and I have some experience. According to Tui Dongshan, the next sect specially sent Yunzhan Mountain as a place for martial artists to learn boxing. I went there and there was a place to use them. Besides, in the small town women who used to admire my talent and for my body could still be called MILFs at that time. Old, the charm is still there, but now they are all how old? No accident, they all have grandchildren. What else can they say when they meet? It will only add to the sadness. Qin Lingjun rolled his eyes and said, "Eating a zongzi is so disgusting." Then the boy and Xing Yi and Zheng Dafeng looked at each other, both of them hee. After all, Daoist Xianwei only understands some truths in books, and his knowledge is not deep, so he could not understand the mystery for a while. Qin Pingon said, "The Taoist priest named Shanqing will participate in this debate on the 3 religions." Zheng Dafeng twitched the corners of his mouth. It was because he was run by a strong man to make up the count. This young Taoist's arguing skills are probably not as good as his fighting skills. Qin Pingon sighed and began to fight for the disciple of the Taoist ancestor. It's just not a shame to lose to Ning Yao. Xing Dafeng smiled and said, it's like you lost to Chao Ci in asking boxing? 3 battles in the Great Wall of Sword Qi and 1 in Gongdalan, how many more are you going to lose next? Qin Lingjun hurriedly coughed a few times and complained, Brother Dafeng, how can you talk? If it weren't for his own brother, the big mouth would fall over. Xing Dafeng raised his palm and slashed at Qin Lingjun's head with a hand knife. Qin Lingjun immediately raised his elbow to block the hand knife. One said that the young hero was young and had deep internal strength and he could walk around the world alone. This has long been accustomed to, Qin Pingon said to himself. It is estimated that I have to lose 2 more fights to Chao Ci or 3 fights. Xing Dafeng said bluntly, if you lose 2 or 3 more games, you won't have to continue to compete with Chao Ci in this life, right? Qin Pingon smiled and nodded. It's a big truth. At most he lost to Chao Ci 3 times. If he lost the 3rd game he didn't need to compete with Chao Ci Wenquan. Because when the time comes to ask about boxing, it is actually only Chao Ci who taught boxing. Qin Pingon asked abruptly, can this shuttle that can help Wufu cross 2 worlds be imitated? Xing Dafeng nodded and said, the material of the shuttle is too rare and most people don't think about it. Even a master of talisman like Zhou Xian is a clever woman who can't cook without rice. But with my master's methods and family background, of course it is possible. Why do you ask this? Qin Pingon said, Sudian over there at the drugstore, she left her hometown alone some time ago, and even Shi Lingshan doesn't know where she went. Xing Dafeng said with a smile, my junior sister, shouldn't I run away with some man? Shi Lingshan can't cry if he knows the truth. Rouge is right not to tell him. Qin Pingon said, Sudian may have gone to Qingming world. Xing Dafeng asked, is there a saying here? Qin Pingon said with his heart, it's just a guess. Because I suspect that the last sacrificial official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi once came to Lizhu Cave in the early years, and then stopped here incognito. This person may be in the Qingming world now. Maybe he is the founder of the Yashan Mountain of the Red Gold Dynasty Wufu Lin Jiangxian. Qin Pingon once asked Liu Yan about Lin Jiangxian's boxing skills, but Liu Yan did not elaborate on the Master Lin, and how high his boxing skills were. Compared with a martial artist, the pure young Taoist who once traveled the Qingming world only gave a statement that the swordsmanship is higher. Needless to say, it has already verified the existing answer in Qin Pingon's heart. Xing Dafeng gave him a look. Qin Pingon sacrificed the flying sword of his life and cut off the world in an instant. Obviously, Xing Dafeng felt that it was not safe enough for one to speak from the heart of a cultivator, and the other to form a secret line, in case the partition wall had ears, and he was worried that there would be a deeply hidden cultivator overhearing in the town. Xing Dafeng then continued, is Lin Jiangxian the last sacrificial officer of your Sword Qi Great Wall? If so, why did he leave the sacrificial officer inappropriately and sneak up to Lizhu Cave, and how he eventually became a pure warrior? I don't dare to make a rash conclusion. As for whether Lin Jiangxian left the Qingming world from Lizidongshan, don't guess. I can tell you right now, definitely yes, because this person has a certain identity. He is me, Li Er, one of Rouge's brothers. I remember a time when I drank with my senior brother Li Er, and Li Er didn't drink too much, but he accidentally leaked, saying that the master and the old man felt that among the disciples and anonymous apprentices, they could really be regarded as having good martial arts qualifications, and there was only one person. It happened many years ago. This person's surname is Xiaxinan. You have read a lot of books. You should know very well that Xiaxinan is the name of the word brand, and Lin Jiangxian and Lin Jiangxian are homophonic, and they are the same word brand regardless of whether it is Lin Jiang Xian, Xiaxinan, or the Return of the Wild Goose. These words and cards with different names are mostly mourning the death memorial work, or paying tribute to the female immortals in the water, and they are indeed related to ancient sacrifices. I remember that the old man was leisure in the drugstore back then. When I was at the time, I often read a book of landscape travel notes of Jianxian from a foreign country. So you guess that Lin Jiangxian is the last sacrificial official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. This girl Rouge, since she has gone out, she must be secretly holding a flying shuttle imitation, and went to the Qingming world to find this brother to learn boxing. She has high spirits and has always wanted to ask you about boxing. She learned boxing with this brother Lin. Then there is a possibility of what if, otherwise there is no such thing. Master still takes good care of her. Whether it is because the little girl's temper is not good for her appetite, or because she feels pity for her uncle who depends on each other, she loves the house and Wu. Anyway, I can clearly feel that Master treats her differently from Shirling Mountain. As for whether Sudian has a background, whether it belongs to the reincarnation of a certain like her uncle, I don't know. I don't want to know. Qin Pingon wondered. If there is no grievance and no enmity, what is Su Dian doing to compete with me? The only relationship between the two parties is that they were with Sudian's uncle, and Qin Pingon once lived in the same dragon kiln. At that time, the kiln apprentice had a vague impression of Sudian, that he occasionally saw a thin and dark girl. Always be alone, standing somewhere far away, because there are many old rules and customs prohibiting the firing of porcelain in the long kiln. Women should not be close to the kiln mouth, and should not touch all the porcelain burning tools with both hands, especially not close to them. The kiln fire, once discovered, will really break the leg. Zheng Dafeng smiled playfully. Are you really not knowing or pretending to be stupid? Qin Pingon was shocked. She likes me. There is no reason. Neither side spoke a word. Zheng Dafeng said angrily, I need a face. Qin Pingon breathed a sigh of relief. For Su Dian, if she wants to repay her kindness, she must be at least as high as you as a martial artist, so that she can really help you in the future and pay off old debts. Zheng Dafeng explained, little girl has a stubborn personality and is very precocious. She is the kind of person who has a clear mind at a young age and can understand everything but has a stupid mouth, but she was raised in such an environment. It is inevitable that she has a little inferiority complex, so you helped that sissy a lot back then, and when he got along with Rouge he must have talked a lot, and over time the little girl will keep it in mind. Qin Pingon lowered his gaze, looked at the charcoal fire and said softly, a lot? Zheng Dafeng asked back, are you less? To treat a sissy who is not regarded as a person but really as a person, is to give help in the snow, helping to survive the freezing winter of life. That sissy who has been in a miserable life all her life, maybe the only obsession in her life is to never freeze to death in winter or die in spring. Qin Pingon said, he has already returned. Zheng Dafeng shook his head and said, that's a sissy thing and Sudian has his own ideas. Speaking of this, Zheng Dafeng said with a smile, don't think him scolding people, I actually had a good relationship with sissy in the early years. If I saw you on the road I would say hello, and I even invited him to drink a few times. Damn, just because this guy knocked on the door a few times and people saw it, I went to Huang Erniang's shop to drink in those years and I was often laughed at by her. Probably the only good thing is that my sister-in-law is no longer so thief-proof when she sees me coming. Already. Qin Pingon ate the dumplings, smiled and joked, Huang Erniang still looks at you very much. In the early years, young and strong men in the small town liked to patronize Huang Erniang's wine shop. They could sit for a long time if they asked for 2 or 3 taels of wine and a plate of wine and food. Often, there were many bachelor guests who came to the door, shouted with the woman and sold wine. The woman went to fill the wine, and when she faced the wine vat, turned around and bent over, the men in the whole shop would all look at the same scenery. The woman lost a man a long time ago and pulled a child by herself. The pretty widow's house is full of right and wrong. There was also a door knocking over the wall in the middle of the night and she was hit by a kitchen knife. He almost hit the door in the face and after that it stopped a lot. After all, he couldn't take the boss life for the second child. With the passage of time, everyone can see that Huang Erniang has so much interest in Zheng Dafeng. Of course it can't be called that kind of old-fashioned relationship, but in any case, the only one who can take credit at her wine shop is really only this bachelor who lives in the yellow mud house in the easternmost part of the town all the year round. Zheng Dafeng is also a bad stomach, often scolding Huang Erniang's son to call his father, drinking in the wine shop, basking in the sun. Whenever Huang Erniang greets the shop in the shop, come and deliver it, bring wine to the table, there will be a woman's shadow on the ground, and Zheng Dafeng will stretch out his palm, grab or pinch, secretly greet the rounded place and take advantage of not being scolded. In the early years, the small town Lu Dianzi, a group of bachelors who could only talk about things, still learned a lot of tricks with the Dafeng brothers. Zheng Dafeng waved his hand with a rare expression of embarrassment. The hero doesn't mention his bravery back then. If it's something that doesn't matter at all, Zheng Dafeng always doesn't want to say anything, but if it really matters, the man is reluctant to talk about it. Zheng Dafeng changed the subject and said, you went to the Hushan faction in person, so you called the Gao sect to Luopao Mountain? Qin Pingon smiled and said, after all, sect leader Gao is the #1 person in the world in the name of blessed land, and there must be no less etiquette. In fact, it is the Hushan faction who was deceived by Zhou Xian and Pei Xiang. He high and low gentlemen love Zhou Xian Li Qian old cook wait. Zheng Dafeng clicked his tongue and said, it's not sincere. Sure enough, when a man has money he becomes bad. It's an eternal principle. Qin Pingon was at a loss. Zheng Dafeng glanced at Qin Pingon, and found that it wasn't that this kid didn't seem to be pretending to be stupid, and he wondered, what is the biggest opportunity in the blessed land outsiders don't know your kid doesn't know? Zheng Dafeng doesn't know much about the Lotus Root blessed land that once belonged to the old Guanzhou, and now the Lotus Root blessed land, but Qin Pingon just talked about the recent situation. Sure some of them are still in the fifth realm. Qin Pingon was dazed at first, then realized it, and then stretched out his hand to rub his face fiercely and said with a smile, to be honest, if you hadn't reminded me, I would never have thought of this. Zheng Dafeng's meaning is not complicated. Since Yu Zhini was able to become a martial artist in the six realms, or even in the Golden Realm, only because of a book of Taoism from an immortal family, he turned to practice the magic on the mountain and he succeeded in success. After entering the Jindan realm, he then broke through another realm, feathered ascension to the Immortal in the nascent Soul realm, and flew away from the Blessed Land. At the same time, almost all of the more than a dozen Qi practitioners in the Hushan faction were old warriors. A person who cultivates Taoism, which means that the unique inheritance of the Hushan school is not simple, and it is somewhat similar to the Pushun Yunkatang in Tongyi's Hao. And this kind of undisclosed secret will never be leaked to outsiders casually. Zheng Dafeng said, it's strange even if you didn't think about it, the old cook and the big white goose are so thoughtful people, and there's no reminder on your side? Qin Pingon smiled and said, I have to ask when I look back. Zheng Dafeng stomped his feet hard again, shouted, death, sin, and quickly reminded Qin Pingon, remember that with the old cook and sect master Cui, don't say that I started the story. Qin Pingon nodded and joked, anyway the old cook can guess it. I don't ask sooner or later. You can ask as soon as you come back and you can figure out things with your knees. Qin Lingjun said a fair word, except for the master who can play chess, his heart is black. Qin Pingon smiled and said, I'm just a stinky chess basket except of course. Qin Lingjun immediately sighed, I can't. Guizhujio said, master, you were in the summer palace back then. As a beginner you were often begged to play those handicap games. I heard that besides Lin Junbai, there are other Antlers Palace Song Gao Yuan, Luxiazu Chao Gun, and Jinjiazu Scrofulature are all extremely intelligent and powerful characters. They are first-class chess masters and can be the top chess players to be ordered. When they join forces they must work together. They had the guts to play against the master alone, and they were also killed without their helmets and armor, and their faces were so pale that they didn't know who came up with the bad idea. They had to use some sinister tricks against the master, such as letting an old girl who couldn't get married, and the man called Luo Zenius. Beautiful girls are all dressed up, dangling around the master trying to distract the master. Of course, these clumsy tricks are destined to be futile. Qin Pingon bent his fingers, pressed his eyebrows and had a headache. Qin Lingjun asked, is there any moisture in the saying of Guizhujio? Qin Pingon asked back, what do you think? Qin Lingjun felt helpless, lied about the military situation and Guizhujio mistaken me. Zheng Dafeng turned his head and asked with a smile, Brother Xianwei, can you play chess? Xianwei hesitated for a while but said honestly, I know a little bit. I traveled south and north and played wild chess in my early years, and I could only earn a little bit of silver. However, there are more stalls in the elephant show which will take less time. Set up some endgames, and then as long as you look at a few chess manuals and memorize the hundreds of endgame chess moves in the book, you can be deceived. In fact, Xianwei didn't particularly like to play Go, but rather liked Xianxia. The specific reason I can't say, just thinks the latter is easier to play. Even in those famous chess endgames, the moves are more than 100 moves long. There were so many changes and Xianwei didn't feel that it was too hard. The reason why he didn't like the former was not because he thought Go was more complicated and exhausting, but against the 19-way chessboard, Xianwei played the score by himself every time he had nothing to do. I always feel that there is a kind of awkwardness that can't be explained clearly. Zheng Dafeng exclaimed, Brother Xianwei is an all-rounder. Qin Lingjun laughed and said, unfortunately I'm still a bachelor. As a result, the three people in the house all looked at the unabashed Xingyi boy. Qin Lingjun instantly smiled stiffly and shrank his neck. Wei Bo and Gao Jun joined forces to go to Piyun Mountain, deliberately slowing down the speed so that the Gao sect leader could see clearly the earth, mountains and rivers under his feet, the gray mountains with strange rocks and cave dwellings, and buildings crowded under the sunlight. The back of the clawfish is like a cluster of shining fish scales. The adjacent Huanghu Mountain and Yuanmu Peak are adjacent to each other. The mountains and rivers depend on each other. The mountain, like a woman in a yellow dress and a blue shirt guest, has been staring at each other for thousands of years without saying a word. Longji Mountain is surrounded by clouds and mist, and there is a faint flow of swords. There are Fengxue Temple and Jinwu Mountain monks here to practice cultivation, and there is that mountain. The huge lake that appeared after the relocation of the hills. The scenery is magnificent, the large pieces are chaotic, the water is rippling, the green lotus leaves are erected, and the wind blows the fragrance, just like 1,000 hectares of blue-glazed resort. Previously, Wei Bo temporarily borrowed a talisman sword to Gao Jun, and explained to her that Qi practitioners need to hang this thing when they are flying in the sky in Chuzhou. Gao Jun hesitated for a while, but still asked this Shanjun about the size of the territory of Beiyue. After Wei Bo gave the answer, he smiled and said, "Sect leader Gao is a guest of Luopa Mountain, that is, a guest of Piyun Mountain. If you are curious, just ask directly, don't be so restrained. If the matter involves secrets, I will also tell sect leader Gao clearly." Gao Jun was already shocked beyond measure, but the territory of the mountains and rivers of the northern mountains of a country is so much larger than the territory of the entire Lotus Root blessed land. So isn't Aquarius a vast land? In this way, Wei Bo, the sassy but warm-hearted mountain monarch by his side, if he was in his hometown of blessed land, wouldn't he be equal to the king of the mountain who is the co-owner of the world? Wei Bo noticed the strange expression on Gao Jun's face, and immediately knew in his heart that it must be that Qin Pingon did not tell her about the magnificent customs outside the blessed land. Think about it. Wei Bo took out 2 Shanhazi and Buji from his sleeves, handed them to Gao Jun and said with a smile, "After reading these 2 books devoted to the appearance of Jiuzhou Mountain, Gao sect master will have a general idea of our vast world." Impressed, Gao Jun wanted to refuse and went to Piyun Mountain as a guest. The guest didn't bring the welcome gift. There is no reason to collect the gift from the host, but she was really reluctant to return it, so she stopped Yufeng and accepted the 2 most important books. For the immortal books that could help him solve his urgent needs, Gao Jun and the empathetic Wei Shanjun bowed their heads and thanked them. Wei Bo laughed dumbly. If this extremely polite and high-ranking sect master becomes a monk in Luopao Mountain in the future, or a famous guest like Zhou Xian, it is estimated that even if she has participated in many discussions in the Patriarch's Hall, she will still feel uncomfortable. The atmosphere of Luopao Mountain, ordinary people want to integrate into it, not only need comprehension but also need fate. Wei Bo felt that until now he was still out of tune with Luopa Mountain's ethos. To talk about the wind and the air, he had to be his own Piyun Mountain. Wei Bo smiled and said, "Although there is suspicion of boasting, in order not to misunderstand Gao, I must explain a few words. I, the mountain monarch of Beiyue, is not only the mountain monarch of a kingdom of the Dali dynasty, but the Piyun Mountain in front of me. It is the Beiyue of the entire Aquarius because just a few years ago the Dali dynasty was still one country and one continent. Later, with the central Dadu as the boundary, the Dali Song clan retreated to the north of Dadu, and now still occupies the treasure. Pingzhou is half of the country." Gao Jun suddenly realized that the situation in his hometown of Blessed Land is also the same now. Tang Tie, the new emperor of the northern Jin kingdom who usurped the throne but did not change the country name, once wanted to personally seal the Beiyue in the territory of the Chan kingdom, and left the capital in a mighty way. As a result, the team only reached the foot of the mountain, and a vision of heaven and earth appeared, and the storm was blowing. The thunder and lightning caused the group to fail to climb the mountain. Tang Tie couldn't go up the mountain alone, and it turned out to be a big joke. Wei Yan, the emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom who had also planned to do the same, didn't want to run into the wall anymore. Because Gao Jun had personally traveled to the 5 sacred mountains and knew of many strange people and events in the mountains, she had already sent a secret letter to the new emperor of Songlai Kingdom, specially reminding him of this, lest the imperial court act rashly and have bad relations with Shanjun. Wei Bo said, "The last national teacher of the Dali dynasty was named Cui Yu and nicknamed Xiuhu. According to our Taoist lineage, Cui Guesher was the elder brother of Qin Shanju, and Qin Shanju was their brother. A close disciple of the same line." Gao Jun was stunned again. It is no wonder that when Qin Pingon left the Blessed Land, he had this family business in less than 30 years. Backing against a big tree is good for enjoying the shade, and someone in the court is good for being an official. Must be the same reason in Howren world. Wei Bo held back his laughter. Yenner said badly, after all, he is a fellow apprentice from the same sect. Cui Guosher has high hopes and special care for this young apprentice, Qin Shanju. Gao Jun nodded and said, since they are from the same family, it is human nature for Cui Guosher to take extra care of Qin Jianxian. It is not fair to choose the virtuous and not avoid relatives. Wei Bo was a little surprised when he heard the words. This sincere leader, she seemed to have a blind date with Luopa Mountain Avenue. Beiwepiun Mountain is very high, but it does not give people a sense of danger and steepness. Wei Bo did not directly take Gao Jun to Shanjun Mansion, but chose a secluded stone platform near the top of the mountain with a wide field of vision. The soil of several states is all under the stone, and there are streams next to it that flow into the secluded pool between the Jimu and the beautiful bamboos. The name is water vine. The grass is difficult to distinguish, and it has the appearance of acacia. The sea of clouds and clouds in the mountains are nestled against each other in this mountain, lingering blue and white outside and connecting with the sky, looking around as one, the splendid sky light coming from a distance. The mountains are green and green. Every time there is a wind, the grass and trees sway and the mountains follow. The wind flows like water from top to bottom. Wei Bo waved his sleeves lightly, and on the high platform as flat as a knife appeared out of thin air a lichen with colorful clothes. On it, there were 2 immortal futons woven from Beiju Luzhou Sanlang Temple. These are all those games. The tributes from the Beiyue Night Tour Banquet, the Treasure Bank Office and the Guard of Honor Department are almost piled up in mountains. A Shanjun, a monk, sat on the futon. Gao Jun saw the beautiful scenery and listened to the sound of the spring. After a long silence he recovered and asked, Wei Shanjun has been the Shanjun for many years? Wei Bo smiled and said, a long time ago I was only a small country's monarch. Later when the dynasty changed I was demoted to a mountain of land. Having said that, Wei Bo stretched out his finger and pointed to Chiduan Mountain. It's over there, not even a mountain god. Due to fate the times come and go and I was lucky enough to be in charge of Piyun Mountain. In fact, it has only been less than 30 years since I served as the Beiyue Mountain Lord of the Dali dynasty. But after all, it is the body of guilt and the murder is constant. It is inevitable to worry about the current scenery and precariousness. Frightened and trembling, Wei Bo described his state of mind in this way, not all the jokes of this Beiyue Shanjun. Just like those words with ulterior motives before, it is not that Wei Bo deliberately teased Gao Jun. If she came to Howren World for the first time and saw people and things, all 3 of which were different from her hometown, she would easily become suspicious and put herself in the dark. In a completely unfamiliar place, all seeing and hearing is beyond a person's old cognitive scope, so you need to find familiar things that you can understand, find yourself a reassurance or find a basket of slates as anchors, used to stop the boat and appease your heart. This is the case with the local accent. It must be the same when you drink the wine that tastes the same in the world and find like-minded friends in the world. The root of it is only in the word like oneself and the word not alone. Once drinking at the same table with the old cook, Sheng Dafeng made a unique guess. He said that the so-called human world may be a kingdom of gods. All people are gods in a certain sense, eating different incense. It was probably a wild fantasy and downright drunken talk. At the top of Jisa Peak, the sable-cap girl squatted on the railing. She raised her chin toward the mountain gate. Is it a little familiar when I saw Xing Dafeng? Xiao Imo nodded and said, the appearance has changed but the temperament has not changed. 10,000 years ago in the tragic battle of ascending to the sky, there was only the general in the great frost armor, who knew that he would die and defended the gate of heaven, not retreating an inch. You must know that the enemy that this general faced at that time was not a sword cultivator or a chi trainer in the world, but the sword holder who was one of the top 5 in heaven. There is no suspense, the will eventually be nailed to the gate by a sword pierced through the armor and body. At this moment Xiego, who is different from usual, looks indifferent. His eyes are clear and he asks, did you deal with that Qingtong Tianjun back then? Xiao Imo shook his head and said, after I entered the Ascension realm, I only got close to the Ascension platform, and I never climbed the divine Tao. I have never met this man, the ancestor of the earth Immortal. Xiego said, I have seen it. Xiao Imo is skeptical about this. Xiego said solemnly. After I became an Earth Immortal, I once walked through the Ascension platform, but it was not the one that women should take. I chose to take the other path as a female sword cultivator. Xiao Mo immediately believed it because this was indeed something that Jianshu Baijing could do and would definitely do. Xiego raised his hands, hugged the sable hat on his head and pouted. It's not good to be emotional and the realm is not high enough. At that time swordsmanship was not good enough and it was almost impossible to protect the dog's head. Xiao Mo said, Qing Tong Tianjun and the other one are still very kind to the monks in the world. Xiego nodded and said, that's because they all retain a large part of their humanity. This is unimaginable in the ancient heaven. I still can't think of a suitable reason. Xiao Mo was silent. People's hearts are unpredictable and messy, so their words are wrong, their words and deeds are inconsistent. This is not the case with the ancient gods. It seems that except for the 5 supreme and high-ranking gods, all words, deeds and thoughts are only straight lines. Daoist practitioners, apart from thousands of spells, go their separate ways. If they go back to the source, they are just learning from the high spirits to get rid of distracting thoughts and condense into one mind. In fact, Xiego had already noticed a few familiar breaths in the town, with a sarcastic expression on his face. Tut. The world is a mausoleum, the sea is a mulberry field, and the fish that swallowed the boat in the past are pitiful, but Lu Chu is invincible. Xiao Mo was about to move away, but Xiego suddenly asked, Xiao Mo, isn't my squatting position unsightly? Xiao Mo didn't say a word. Xiego turned back, bent his knees to the ground, stood up, held up his sable hat, and looked at Xiao Mo wearing a yellow hat. She thought it was a perfect match. Walking beside Xiao Mo, the girl began to sigh and sigh. It was obviously a destiny made in heaven, so why was it so hard? Xiao Mo suddenly asked a terrifying question. Tell me the truth, put aside the personal affairs between you and me. What are you asking for when you come to Howren World this time? Xiego blinked, neither wanting to deceive Xiao Mo nor telling the truth. She had to pretend to be stupid. Holding a walking stick, Xiao Mo walked on the mountain road between Jisa Peak and Jilling Peak and said indifferently, It doesn't matter if you don't want to say it, I don't dare to be interested anyway, but I have something to say first, no matter what the treasure is, no matter what you are. When you get it, remember not to violate the rules of the Confucian Temple and don't make my son feel embarrassed. Ascension-level sword cultivators like him and Baijing before 10,000 years ago almost always liked to travel the world alone, so in fact, today's several worlds are actually both unfamiliar and familiar to them. Although the years are long, the number of monks who have passed through the world over the past 10,000 years is as numerous as a hair. As a result, many opportunities and treasures from 10,000 years ago have almost been seized and searched. But it is inevitable that there will be a few fish that slip through the net and have never been caught. Later monks noticed that Xiao Mo guessed that Baijing's trip must be a treasure hunt, and she would never return empty-handed. Xiego smiled awkwardly. Thieves don't get away. Qin Pingon left the house alone, and Qin Lingjun was retained by Jing Daifeng's kindness. The two sides winked and began to whisper again. Peek pretending to be an umbrella before leaving, Qin Pingon took out several large jars from what was in the immediate vicinity, all of which were filled with clear water. Although clear water, it was valuable because it was the Lingqiu of the Changchun Palace, the Fuqian Spring on the Longtuan Peak of Yunxia Mountain, and 2 more. The share is that Pei Qian fetched and collected water from Biezhou during his travels. At first, Chao Qingqing went to the capital of Dali to take part in the test. Jing Dafeng was just making a joke. After asking Chao Qingqing to inscribe the title, he took the time to make a detour to Changchun Palace. He couldn't buy it. Lingqiu spring water is used to make tea, and women can drink it to keep her face. In fact, Jing Daifeng's good intentions are to let Chao Qingqing, a nerd, go to the Changchun Palace where Yingying Yan and the fairies gather to gain insight and gain insight. If the speaker is not intentional, the listener is intentional. Chao Qingqing will take it seriously, but that Lingqiu water is the source of Changchun Palace's brewing of Changchun fairy wine. After several setbacks, he finally found someone to ask for a relationship, and then sent it to Nujiadu via the Xianxia ferry. As for the 2 small celadone jars from the floating money spring of Longtuan Peak, Qin Pingon once traveled to Yunxia Mountain, and it is conceivable how they got there. Jing Dafeng looked at those bottles and jars and was speechless for a while. It was just a joke from his early years, but one by one he actually took it seriously. It's just that Jing Dafeng is a little embarrassed. How can he save these clear springs and beautiful waters that are easily deteriorated and turbid? Qin Pingon said, "You go to Wei Shanjun for help." Sun Yuanji slowly walked up the steps, walked down the stairs and practiced boxing. She was as small as a mustard seed. One climbed high and the other went down. In a trance because of the appearance of the shuttle, Qin Pingon began to suspect that the Kuokeng cave, which included the cicada sloughing cave in the past, was secretly collected by Old Man Yang. Then he just deliberately leaked the whereabouts of Chanshi Dongtian, and then there was Qin Kinglia's cross-continental excursion and he practiced in the middle. The first real dragon in the world who was responsible for the specific circulation of water transportation, once secretly concluded a covenant with the cultivators in the world, and finally betrayed the heavenly court. And Qin Qinglu, the man who slashed the dragon, used to practice swords in Kuokeng Cave for many years and he preached here. Is it a liquidation of Old Man Yang against the traitors? If this is the case, the deep calculation and the far-reaching plan are indeed terrifying. According to Lu Yen, the dragon-slaying platform, one of the two execution platforms in the ancient heavenly court, was destroyed and shattered by a certain sword cultivator during the battle to the sky, and was scattered and left in the world. The two largest cliffs, one Longji Mountain has many ancient names such as True Hidden, Sky Nose, Windmill, Liao Dang. Since then there have been many sword immortals and dragons in the ancient Shu. Another stone cliff is located on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, which has been passed down to Ningyao from generation to generation. Over the years, Qin Pingon has always kept a piece of dragon-slaying platform. No matter how obsessed he is with money or the gall of a bear and leopard, he doesn't dare to make any mistakes, so he puts it in a square inch and carries it with him all the time. Qin Pingon never dared or was willing to use it to sharpen his sword. Because it was the first time for Qin Pingon to travel to the Great Wall of Sword Qi before leaving, at the Hanging Mountain Stork Inn, Ningyao asked Zhang Lu to help hand it over as a parting gift to Qin Pingon. The dragon-slaying platform, which was wrapped in cotton cloth, was the size of a palm, with two characters engraved on the front and back. Innocent Ningyao. A token of love. Really hidden knows. God knows really hidden. If you take a word from each and combine them, it is naive. The Sword Qi Great Wall, the last sacrificial official, disappeared without a trace, and transformed into Xia Xinan of Lizhu Cave and Lin Jiangxian of Qingming World. After that, Ningyao ran away from home. She traveled alone in the vast continents and finally came to Lizhu Cave. Qin Pingon still dare not say that he has figured out the details of the town. People's reminiscence, sadness and regret are like a deep pool of ancient wells, deep in it and can't extricate themselves. The nostalgia between lovers spreads all the way, galloping, and misses someone from afar as if he and she met in an instant. Qin Pingon breathed lightly, rubbed his cheeks and cleared his mind. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly discovered a strange thing. Sun Yuanji was standing at the foot of the mountain, not practicing boxing to climb the mountain. Without thinking too much, Qin Pingon went straight down the mountain, turned into the Bluestone Road, glanced at the old cook's house and then returned to the bamboo building, making up his mind that the heavy snowfall in the capital of Nanyuan this year, the old cook, you wait for me. Sun Yuanji just waited for the blue shirt to disappear from sight before continuing to walk up the mountain for 6 steps. After all, she is a warrior who is a bottleneck in the 5 realms and has good eyesight. She had previously discovered that the mountain owner on the top of the mountain seemed to be waiting for a rabbit, staring blankly at the foot of the mountain, making Sun Yuanji look at him. Originally, Sun Yuanji was still a little uncertain. After all, her impression of this mountain master had changed from the very beginning to the worst. But at the gate of the mountain she found that Qin Pingan's line of sight had never changed. In the past, when she practiced boxing back and forth, the gatekeeper Jing Daifeng's eyes wandered and she was sneaky. In the house at the foot of the mountain, as soon as the mountain owner left, Qin Lingjun and Jing Dafeng began to arrange troops. Because they disliked the small side room and the desk of Xianwei, they went to the lobby of the main house. Xianwei, quickly I felt that my eyes were not enough. Turned out that the table of the 8 immortals was dazzling. Zheng Dafeng nodded frequently and his family was rich and considerable. He gave Qin Lingjun a thumbs up and praised him as a master of the mirror. It's just that Jing Dafeng is unavoidably curious. Qin Lingjun, a poor bastard, must have made a fortune. Otherwise, Jinghua Shuiyu together with a private talisman is the first step and then it is the most expensive activity. Qin Lingjun snorted coldly, saying that it was Chief Shou's credit for having such a scale, and he funded him a large amount of Guyes money, which was specially used to buy this kind of mountain treasure. When Jing Dafeng was still in Luopao Mountain, he often went to Zhou Lian's side. Another Qin Lingjun closed the door and admired the Jinghua Shuiyu all over Aquarius. However, the three people in the same way actually had their own preferences. There are all kinds of ways to make money. The most popular ones are definitely those who rely on the female cultivator to support the field and carry the main beam, just like the former Xingyang Mountain Su Jia and He Xiaoyang of the Shengao sect, but they are arrogant. Big but only show up occasionally. Qin Lingjun likes to look at landscape-like scrolls. The pictures are both simple and elegant, and they are chewy. Jing Dafeng is not so subtle and elegant. Gracefully dressed female nuns, dancing gracefully as the finale, whoever throws money to call who is brother. In the early years, Jing Dafeng's salary was lost in the sound of Big Brother Jing. Sometimes in order to be able to chat with the nuns a few more words if you talk about meat, you will also make an IOU with the old cook. And Zhou Lian's taste is rather strange. He only likes those strange ways, such as those who sell various boxing manuals and secrets. When I come to a word, those who are interested will negotiate privately, the price will be discounted, and there will be discounts for bulk packaging. Otherwise, it is an immortal mansion with a few swords that go to the front. Jinghua Shuiyu does not take the usual way, and specially sets up the kind of bridge where the scholar meets the ghost. Playing and playing, all of them have graceful backs, hazy, just waiting for them to turn their heads again. They can often scare Qin Lingjun, who leaned over to watch the scenery, or the scholar is in the gloomy mansion, walking through the corridor alone with lanterns. Suddenly a female ghost fell from the beam, or a hand with pale skin and scarlet nails lightly rested on the shoulder of the scholar. The old cook never moved like a mountain, picking up the salted peanuts in the dish and slowly look with relish. In the land of a continent, only the sect prefixes such as Shengao sect and Fengshua temple, and Daxian mansions such as Yunxia Mountain and Changchun Palace, Zhufeng Jinghua Shuiyu have a stipulation of when to open, and it is relatively frequent, and it is common for sects on the mountain because every time you open a mirror, you need to consume the spiritual energy of mountains and rivers, and you are most afraid of losing money, so the interval is long and you are willing to spend more time. Just because there are enough spiritual tools connected to Jinghua Shuiyu on the table, Xianwei has seen the scene of treasure light flowing on the table twice. Jing Dafeng brought a few jars of wine from the cellar and poured 3 bowls. Qin Lingjun was not in a hurry to drink and put his arms around his chest. Xianwei Daoist, do you want to look a little lighter or a little meatier? I saw Xianwei Daoist sitting upright, took a sip of wine from the bowl, thought about it and said solemnly, Pin Dao's line of practice, there is no requirement to be vegetarian, but you can eat meat when you get married. That is, Qin Pingon was not present. Otherwise Qin Lingjun would be able to eat chestnuts. Yumu Peak, a high cliff. Zhou Lian raised his head and put his hands behind his back. The handwriting on the cliff was painted with silver hooks, elegant and unparalleled. Running script means cursive script, which is not a skill, and italics has an old-fashioned inscription which is not a rare thing, but being able to write a well-behaved block script with a rushing madness can really make Zhou Lian. It was too much to sigh, and after weighing it, Zhou Lian had to admit that he couldn't imitate it. In the past there was a Taoist priest from Chunyang who went out to sea and returned to Yunmu Peak. There is a Taoist poem on the cliff carved on the stone. The preface is very long and the content is far better than the poems. In addition, the font of the preface is not small. There is a suspicion of anti-customer oriented. The ancients exiled Xianbai also came from Amei, and the heaven is the appearance and the Tao is the appearance. Lu Yen, a near miss, went from this peak flying a sword in the air. The ground is wide and the sky is high and the clouds are deep and loose. All gentlemen, don't ask about the cultivation method, follow the pure yang, the spirit of bathing the snow, find the fire in the water and let go of the heart and live the soul. My generation has learned this technique and penetrated the heavens and the axis of the earth. That is longevity. Since ancient times, there is no need for money to learn Taoism. There are only the sun and the moon in the scoop. There was a purple edict who followed Qinghuan and went down to the jade capital. Bring. Pei Xiang was standing beside Zhou Lian. She was not in a hurry to return to Fox Country, and would return to Lotus Root Blessed Land with Gao Jun. Because Pei Xiang didn't know the identity of Lu Yen for the time being, he only felt that this cliff carver who dared to put himself and Bai also together, since he was so openly talking to the world in the mountains, he was either making a lot of nonsense and trying to gain fame. A Taoist scholar, or he has a purpose and is the kind of unfathomable master of Taoism. Can be said that it is the latter. The text inscribed on the cliff in front of me does not have the slightest air of morality. In general, the great cultivator personally engraved the book on the cliff, more or less, with a literal immortal spirit, but this one. The Taoist poems, which are like green words, have no spiritual energy in the main text and preface. Pei Xiang, who is a cultivator of Yuanying, still has this vision. Zhou Xian squinted and smiled and said, "Can't you tell whether it's good or bad or the depth?" Pei Xiang smiled charmingly, nodded and said, "Help me solve the confusion?" Zhou Xian said, "It's both a Taoist art and a sword formation, waiting for the destined people in the future. If you don't believe it, you can use all your strength to attack the treasures and see if you can shake the words in the slightest." On the mountain road, the sable-cap girl and the yellow-cap youth walked side by side, but she was the only one who was chatting. Xiaomo was more patient because she remembered the teachings of her son. "Xiaomo, let me tell you something. During my long sleep I had the same dream repeatedly, but it was scary. According to the book, I went out and saw nothing and the bones covered the plain." Little Imo, why does the local dialect of Huaihuang County call the reflux of water thirsty, especially in Baoxi County, where many rivers are called thirsty? I think this way of naming both ingenious and beautiful. What do you think? Xiaomo, you can say a word with me. Xiaomo, I think you like me, right? I've done it dozens of times. If you still don't speak, you'll take it as your default. 19876543321. Whoops, what a beautiful day.